The river mist curled low over the god's eye in the lilac hush before dawn, pearl-slick and silent as a secret. Petyr Baelish stood upon the dew-silvered parapet of Riverrun's eastern wall, eyes flitting across the water where lantern-bright fishing skiffs drifted like scattered fireflies. Below, the red fork murmured against the castle's lower stones, its voice soft enough that even Petyr, sharp of ear, eager of heart, had to lean to hear it. He was 17 and slight, clad in wool-dyed tully blue, and though frost stung his cheeks, he scarcely felt the cold. Beyond the walls, the river carried whispers of his desire north and skyward, as though the current itself were beckoning him toward a fate he dared not yet claim. He closed one hand about the silver mockingbird brooch at his throat. The sigil was new, gifted by Lord Hoster after Petyr's first lessons in Riverrun's counting house, a subtle mark of favor no larger than a sparrow's egg. But it was the weight of another promise that burdened his breast. Lady Catelyn had smiled when her father pinned it on him. Smiled fondly, he dared believe. That memory, her eyes like autumn sunlight through copper leaves, fueled every heartbeat. He remembered how she had looked the previous evening, rambling the banks with her sister Lisa, skirts lifted from the mud. Catelyn had paused beside the stone where once Petyr challenged Brandon Stark. For pride, for love, for folly. The memory of that duel, a boy's rash wound and a man's humiliation, would have crushed a lesser spirit. Yet Petyr's shame had hardened into a steel resolve. He had sworn to Lisa in secret tears that he would be more than the summer ward who once bled in Tully halls. He would rise so high that even Brandon's ghost would shade its eyes to glimpse him. Wind hissed through Merlin's, tousling his dark hair. Today, the maesters said, riders from the Vale would arrive. Sir John Arryn's party bearing Lisa home for foster and, if rumor held, to reweave the alliance that crumbled with Brandon's bloody scabbard. Lisa had wept when Hoster bade her prepare. Petyr had pressed a kiss to her knuckles, promising letters, small japes, anything to see her smile. But his thoughts had been on the elder sister whose gaze lingered upon him with gentle concern, as though she feared he might break under the weight of old scars. Behind him, boots struck stone. He did not turn. He knew the cadence, Lord Hoster's measured stride, authority tempered by age, and Catelyn's lighter step, sure as any riverbird dancing across shallows. Their muted voices swelled, approaching. And yet you'd counsel patience? Hoster asked in a hush edged by exasperation. Aye, father. Catelyn's tone was steady, but Petyr heard the flutter beneath, like silk in sudden wind. We mustn't rush betrothals without weighing hearts as well as houses. Our hearts are north, daughter, Hoster sighed. Winterfell's heir is half a realm away. Harsh seasons loom. They reached the parapet. Petyr schooled his features, turning just as Hoster Tully halted beside him. Catelyn paused a pace back, copper hair under a fur-lined hood, face pale in dawnlight. Little Baelish. Hoster's gray eyes appraised him. An idle dawn for strolls? I find dawn a fitting hour for ledger minding, my lord, Petyr replied, allowing a ghost of amusement. The day's debts always look smaller when the sun is low. The lord chuckled despite himself. A lesson I should heed. Catelyn drew forward. Petyr, she said softly, father worries you seldom sleep. I dream more waking, Petyr answered, daring a smile meant only for her. She lowered her eyes, the faintest flush upon her cheeks. Hoster cleared his throat. Come, we've matters to prepare. John Arryn's banners ride within the hour. He clasped Petyr's shoulder. Let the mockingbird prove it sings true today. As they departed, Catelyn glanced back once, eyes unreadable. Petyr's heart hammered. The Vale's arrival might shape his destiny. He would see it bent to his favor. The high road into Riverrun filled with clamor by mid-morning. Clinking mail, neighing steeds, the Vale's crescent moon standards rippling above mailed knights. John Arryn rode at column center, silver hair bright beneath a sky swiftly clearing to summer azure. Lisa Tully perched side saddle near the front, cheeks splotched red from weeping or wind. Petyr watched from a balcony over the gatehouse, noting every crest, Redfort, Corbray, Waynwood. calculating what gifts, what flattery might turn each to an ally. He measured distances between riders as if mapping stepping stones across a torrent. In the bustle of courtiers greeting guests, Petyr slipped unseen among shadows, crossing hallways like a shade. He intercepted Maester Vyman near the rookery stairs and murmured a request. Ink, parchment, a quiet chamber. Vyman blinked owlishly but did not refuse. Maesters were predictable. Offer them a chance to serve the realm's good order, and they yielded parchment like doves from sleeves. Within that borrowed study, Petyr penned 2 letters. The first, to Ser Brynden Blackfish, extolled the valor of the Riverlords and suggested discreetly that some knights of the Vale admired his exploits and spoke of joint tourneys to strengthen ties. He sealed it with green wax, crestless, the better to stoke curiosity. The second, shorter, he addressed to Catelyn herself. He had written her many notes these years, some playful, some earnest, but today's words trembled with the audacity of fate. Lady Catelyn, we walk edges sharp as moonlit knives, yet I would not trade this path for any king's safe road. If light were to perish tomorrow, I should still count this dawn rich for having seen your smile. He paused, quill poised. Too brazen? Perhaps, but hearts were seldom won by caution. He folded the parchment without a signature. She knew his hand. When feast horns sounded that evening, Riverrun's great hall blazed with torches reflecting dull gold from 800 candlewicks. Tully banners of leaping trout flanked the dais, but beside them now rose the azure falcon of House Arryn stitched upon snowy silk. Sky and river meeting. Lisa, in blue and gray, clutched her father's arm with polite serenity, though her knuckles whitened. Catelyn moved among the guests, a living torch with hair of copper flames. Petyr's breath caught each time her gowns brushed the rushes. Lord John Arryn addressed the hall, voice carrying calm authority. He praised Tully hospitality, spoke of old foster bonds, and, crucially, remarked that the Vale's peace was ever intertwined with river trade and, by extension, with northern grain flowing south. Petyr marked sympathetic nods from riverlords. He saw in their faces the arithmetic of alliances. Then Hoster rose. My lords, my daughters are jewels of Riverrun. A roar of approval echoed. And should the stranger take me, I would leave them safe in bonds noble and sure. Yet daughters are not coins to be bartered but torches to guard hearths. I invite counsel and courtship, but only where honor and affection entwine. Petyr's heart thumped. Open courtship? The hall buzzed like a stirred hive. He cast eyes to Catelyn. She stood behind her father, expression poised. Did she know? Had she guessed his plan? During the feast, Petyr maneuvered with the grace of a cat between tables, exchanging jests, sipping wine sparingly. No dulled senses tonight. At last he found Catelyn near a pillar wreathed in evergreen, her cup empty. Lady Catelyn. He bowed low enough that raven hair grazed flagstones. Might I refresh your drink? I thank you, Petyr, she replied, offering the goblet. You've grown courtly. Years and books are kindly tutors. He returned with honeyed wine, and they lingered in the half-shadow. Music from harp and pipes swelled as dancers spun. Catelyn sipped. I've received your letter, she said, voice barely a breath. He felt heat rise in his chest. Then my hopes have flown before my words. She looked aside. You must know Father courts many alliances, Starks, maybe even the Baratheons for Lisa, should foster ties strengthen. You and I, we share sweet memories, but marriage, he leaned closer, is forged of more than convenience. The Vale stands wealthy yet cautious, the north vast yet remote. Together they could temper each other, steel wrapped in velvet. And you, Catelyn, could be the bridge the realm never thought to build. Her eyes widened. You speak as though you command bannermen and crowns. I speak as one who sees paths where others see walls. He dared brush her hand. Walk with me. They slipped through an archway into Riverrun's moonlit godswood. Above, stars shone like shards of shattered ice. In the hush of rustling leaves, Petyr bared his heart in earnest or cunning or both, declaring devotion that burned since childhood, admitting ambition that towered to sky-high castles, pledging to raise her children amid love, weaving images of a North Vale union that would shield every hearth from southern wars. Catelyn listened, tears jeweling lashes. "Petyr," she whispered, voice trembling. "I once thought my life already written. A Tully wed to a Stark, mother to lords of Winterfell. But the ink dries slowly, it seems." His fingers caught hers. "Let us ink a new page together." The gods would held its breath. 2 days hence, under banners of falling leaves and sky-blue falcons, Hoster Tully announced that Lady Catelyn was to wed Petyr Baelish come first snowmelt, and Lisa would accompany Lord Arryn east to Foster and, in time, to choose a match of her own heart. Gasps rippled through vassals like wind upon wheat. Some whispered of Baelish's meager holdings in the fingers. Others fretted at Stark pride wounded by the slight. Yet none dared oppose the Lord of Riverrun in his own hall. Word galloped north across leagues of leaf-gold forests, and ravens beat black wings across frosty skies to the Eyrie and beyond. In Winterfell's great hall, Eddard Stark read the parchment once, twice jaw set. His beloved brother Brandon, wild and bright as summer lightning, had mocked Baelish's boldness and nearly killed him for the audacity of love. For years Ned assumed Catelyn's hand would mend old wounds between river and north. Now the path forked, and Ned must walk a darker trail into southern politics alone. Jon Arryn, surprised but politic, offered congratulations. "The boy is clever," he told his young ward Robert Baratheon. "Clever men rise high if not crushed first." Robert downed cider and laughed. "A pint-sized lord betting a beauty like her? 7 hells, John. Perhaps I aimed my fortunes." Petyr received gifts. A ring of Black River pearls, a charter granting him stewardship of Mistwood on the Tumblestone. Knights swore fealty, half out of duty to Tully, half out of curiosity. He wore new doublets of Vale blue trimmed with northern gray, colors of union. Yet behind every grin flickered cunning flame. He knew alliances were wrought of more than cloth and parchment. The real forge was war. When King Aerys summoned his banners to answer Lord John Connington's failure in the Stepstones, rumors bled like wounds. Taxes for wildfire caches, talk of dragons hatched in madness. Houses Baratheon, Stark, Arryn, and Tully murmured rebellion in faces. Petyr breathed opportunity in every tremor. Winter's first kiss dusted Riverrun's towers when Petyr and Catelyn wed beneath the heart tree. Snowflakes melted in her hair like silver, and his cloak settled upon her shoulders. Half-circle of midnight while clasped by the mockingbird pin. In the vows he spoke not just love but destiny. Binding Vale's mountain spears and northern direwolves, even as whispers told of Rhaegar's prize at Summerhall and Lyanna Stark's curious absence from Winterfell's winter town. After the bedding, red petals, torchlight, raucous laughter. Petyr lay awake beside Catelyn, tracing patterns upon her bare shoulder. "You are quiet," she murmured, eyes half closed. "Mapping dreams," he replied. "Dream softly tonight, my lord." Her hand found his. Winter stiffens even mockingbird's wings. A mockingbird sings sweetest in cold. She smiled, drifted to slumber. Petyr stared into darkness, mind aflame with blue banners streaming over White Harbor, with Vale coin financing northern garrisons, with Jon Arryn, father by law, shaping young Robert's hot blood, with maps where each holdfast bore his subtle mark. One day, he vowed, ravens would call him not Littlefinger but something grander. Spring thaw birthed flood tides as tension blossomed into open war. Brandon Stark rode to King's Landing demanding Lyanna's release. He died screaming for his sister while wildfire crackled like green laughter. Lord Rickard Stark perished beside him, roasted alive. The north roared as if struck, banners unfurling dire wolf gray. Yet their grief stormed not alone, for the Vale now stood pledged through marriage. When Eddard Stark called banners at Moat Cailin, Petyr rode at his side, studded leather beneath a half-mantle of northern wolf faces interlaced with Vale falcons. Some northern lords eyed him askance. What good a slight lordling of the fingers? But he returned gaze with cool confidence. Jon Arryn weighed duty and blood. With Lisa's pleas echoing in his solar, he chose rebellion, raising the Aerys Knights to join the northern host. Robert Baratheon soon followed. South the Riverlords surged, Blackfish Brynden slinging corvid black, Edmure Tully eager to prove himself, Ser Jason Mallister's silver eagles swooping. Catelyn, now heavy with child, remained at Riverrun to oversee grain and levy musters. Ravens between her and Petyr flew near daily, words of longing mingled with coded notes. Troop counts, supply routes, whispers from King's Landing gleaned by Petyr's coin-aided informants. Lord Varys, the royal spider, found his webs fouled by this mockingbird's quick darts. False rumors sown in silk earthen-hued to distract from true moves. Outside Gulltown, Petyr knelt in a muddy tent across a map slick with candle grease. Ned Stark's finger traced a route through the mountains of the moon, linking Vale and Riverlands. If we hold the passes, the Mad King's levies from Gulltown cannot join the royalist host. Petyr nodded thoughtfully. I know smugglers' trails along the narrow sea cliffs. Light infantry could flank any sortie. I can see to guides for a price. Ned arched a brow. Gold. Promises. Petyr smiled thinly. Every man values something. They shared a silence heavy with unspoken truth. The North trusted honor. Petyr trusted hunger. Battles scattered across the realm like cast dice. Ashford, the Trident, stony September nights of the Vale thundered beside northern banners, their lances impaling green-cloaked loyalists. In each camp, Petyr walked the fires like a specter, passing whispers, forging debts, marking glances between commanders. He cultivated Samwell Stone of the Paps, a bastard captain quick with a grin, and saw to it that Samwell's company received double rations when they screened Tully archers at Maidenpool. Later Samwell's blades circled Petyr's tent like shadows, repaying kindness with steel loyalty. At Stony September, Robert's hammer met John Connington beneath black smoke and broken roof beams. Petyr stood upon a slate ridge, surveying carnage through a Myrish eye tube. He noted where river knights faltered and swiftly dispatched messengers sending Vale reinforcements to fill gaps, thus both rescuing Tully honor and indebting Edmure to him, though Edmure would scarcely notice the ledger. Men seldom sense silken chains until they tighten. More letters from Catelyn reached him. She wrote of his newborn daughter, shrouded in his mockingbird colors, of lords who muttered at his swift influence, of Maester Vyman's worries over grain rot. Petyr sent grain wagons from Gulltown, purchased at slight markup with coin borrowed against yet unseized crown lands. Speculators called him reckless. Petyr smiled, for war rewrites ledgers as surely as swords rewrite borders. When Catelyn wrote of Ned's wounding at the Tower of Joy's skirmish, Petyr rode night and day to reach the Stark camp on the banks of the Trident. He found Ned pale but seated, eyes haunted. Lyanna lay dying miles away. Petyr's presence stirred hushed surprise, yet Ned clasped his hand. You came, the Northman said. Petyr lowered his gaze. We are bound, you and I, through Catelyn, through battle, through blood spilled by tyrants. I serve the cause. Ned's voice cracked. Then help me end it. On the eve before the decisive clash at the Trident, rain lashed canvas and men alike. Petyr moved through mud, sowing orders in lordly tents. A whispered suggestion to Roose Bolton about flanking across the Green Fork. A reminder to Yohn Royce that Riverland's archers counted on Vale shields. A quiet word to Brynden Tully that scouts reported loyalist knights massing near a ford Petyr himself had ensured would flood by dawn. Like a puppeteer, he tugged strings of rumor and river alike. Dawn broke gray and turgid. The Battle of the Trident birthed legends. Robert's hammer shattering Prince Rhaegar's gem-studded armor, the ruby droplets swallowed by river shallows, the northern host's war cries echoing across burned willows, Vale knights wheeling like storm-born hawks. Petyr stayed behind lines, eyes fixed on field glass, dispatching runners at crucial moments. When Rhaegar fell and the tide turned, he penned swift missives to Catelyn. Victory. Our star ascends. That night, as bonfires devoured pyres of the dead, Robert screamed oaths for Lyanna. Ned rode south, grim-faced, into storms. Petyr approached Lord Jon Arryn amid flickering torchlight. My lord, he said, bowing. The realm will need a hand as just as he is wise. Arryn studied Petyr. And you believe that is me? The realm believes, Petyr answered smoothly. And belief is half the task. And the other half? guidance from those who know where to place the levers. Aeron chuckled. Meaning you? Petyr spread his hands modestly. King Robert Baratheon ascended the Iron Throne in a shower of cheers and debts. Jon Arryn became Hand, as Petyr predicted. Petyr himself rode to King's Landing weeks ahead of the coronation, tasked with re-establishing the Master of Coin's office, liaisons between Vale and North, and sundry minor duties. He moved through the Red Keep's corridors like quicksilver, his mockingbird pin gleaming. Catelyn arrived after, children in tow. Young Edlyn, auburn curls and sly smile, and infant Rabar, named for the new king yet eyes solemn like a Stark. Petyr greeted them with a lover's tenderness and a mage's pride. They took chambers overlooking Blackwater Bay, where gulls wheeled above silt-brown waves. Catelyn's presence cemented northern trust. Her letters home spoke of Petyr's diligence, of coins flowing, of Robert's feasts, so wild they shook stone walls. But not all rejoiced. Lisa Arryn, now Lady of the Eyrie, wrote cryptic notes heavy with grief. She and Jon sickened, hearts heavy, childless yet. Petyr responded with soothing promises of potions, physicians, solace, but inside he weighed possibilities. An heir in the Eyrie with Baelish blood might tie more knots yet unimagined. In council chambers Petyr sparred in whispers with Varys, smiling at the eunuch's silken barbs, trading secrets like masked dancers trading steps. He seated the city watch with men from Gulltown and Stony September. He bribed Braavosi captains to watch taxes in Gulltown's harbor. He arranged for timber shipments from White Harbor to sell at double price after he convinced Robert to fund a new tourney ground. Catelyn, seeing only a portion of his webs, questioned softly at night.
Petyr bruscht stre str.
Ends of her hair. Every realm thrives on coin, my love, and coin listens to clever men. But at what cost? She murmured. At whatever cost protects our children, he whispered, kissing her brow. Years passed on gilded wings. The Vale and North prospered in relative peace. Winter's bite eased in markets afloat with southern oranges and Dornish wine purchased with Baelish barter deals. Vale steel armed northern garrisons along the wall, a gesture Ned Stark accepted with cautious thanks. In return, northern lumber flowed to Gulltown shipyards building carracks flying mockingbird pennants beside lunar falcons. Yet as Petyr's fortunes swelled, shadows lengthened. King Robert's revelry drained crown coffers faster than they replenished. Jon Arryn grew weary, burden etched in every line of his face. Cersei Lannister's emerald gaze lingered too long upon Petyr during court, curiosity or suspicion. Varys smiled more often, a sign that somewhere threads tightened. And there were whispers, always whispers, that Baelish's climbed too far. Old lords muttered about parvenus. Iron Bank scribes tallied loans. Red Keep servants gossiped of coin exchanged for secrets in torchlit alcoves. Petyr listened to every rumor, savoring them like fine wine. A rumor known was a blade dulled. Yet one rumor pricked, that Ned Stark, now Warden of the North, considered naming young Robb his heir to Winterfell while Petyr and Catelyn's brood stood half Vale, half Southron. In council, Petyr pressed for roads linking Moat Cailin to the Neck trade routes he claimed. But inside he feared distance could breed fracture. He dispatched Samwell Stone, now a knight, to escort Catelyn and children on a progress north. Samwell's discreet orders: gauge Ned's mood, sway his maester to praise the Vale's grain shipments, gift hooded falcons to Sansa and Arya, tokens of union. Small measures to keep hearts tethered. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, a squire found Jon Arryn coughing blood upon parchments detailing a lineage of blonde princes and black-haired bastards. Petyr stood behind a curtain when Varys spoke of the sickness. He watched Cersei's face remain porcelain still. He considered possibilities. A hand dying could unseat many chairs. When Jon Arryn breathed his last, Robert wept ale-soaked tears. The council debated a new hand. Petyr recommended Eddard Stark in measured tones, painting him as honor made flesh, the very virtue Robert's rotting realm required. In truth, Petyr needed Ned in King's Landing where webs were thickest. A wolf out of its den is easier watched. Ravens flew north. Ned soon rode south. Catelyn, urged by Petyr, tarried at Winterfell to nurture ties. He felt threads tighten. Varys weaving secrets, Cersei coiling like a viper, Ned stepping onto unfamiliar boards where every tile was Baelish green. And Petyr, master of coin, husband of a Tully, lord of a Vale North alliance, waited with patient smile for the game's next turn. For though mockingbirds mimic other songs, they keep one melody for themselves alone, a tune sharp enough to cut crowns. So the Vale stood bound to the north from the first day of rebellion, welded by the surprising marriage of a girl who loved honor and a boy who loved descendants. The 7 kingdoms tilted upon that seam, and every breath henceforth would carry the scent of snow mingled with mountain wind, and the faintest echo of a mockingbird's triumphant trill amid direwolf howls beneath an unfurling falcon's wings. The wind that carried Eddard Stark south tasted of brine and honeysuckle where it swept across the Blackwater. But even that sweetness could not hide the iron tang of the city below. King's Landing in high summer stank, of tanners' vats and night soil carts, of fish rotting in wicker baskets and sweet wine spilled in gutters, of too many souls pressed against stone walls built for half their number. Ned rode through the Dragon Gate with 20 guards in stark gray cloaks, passing vendors who hawked honeyed dates and chicken hearts on skewers, their cries drowned by the constant shriek of gulls. Above every stenched alley, the Red Keep loomed crimson against a cloudless sky, as if Aegon's Hill itself were bleeding. Petyr Baelish watched Ned's arrival from a balcony that overlooked the mud-brown river. His doublet was dove-gray silk today, neutral, unremarkable, but a mockingbird pin winked at his throat, wings shaped from 2 chips of black tourmaline. At his back, cloth of gold curtains billowed in the sea breeze, brushing shoulders of courtiers who had accepted his invitation to a quiet luncheon in the solar of the Master of Coin. The luncheon's true fare was gossip. Petyr served it the way a Myrish chef served quail, boned, spiced, and easy to swallow. "Lord Stark brings but a modest guard," remarked Lord Baelor Hightower, sniffing at a goblet of arbor red. His salt and pepper beard was trimmed to a point that matched his voice. "Modest," Petyr agreed, "yet honest steel. Northmen are slow to draw blades, but slower still to sheathe them." Ser Meryn Trant of the Kingsguard shifted on his feet. "The gold cloaks will keep order." He said it as though repeating a drill rather than believing it. "Order, yes," Petyr murmured. "But hearts? Hearts are trickier." He leaned over the balcony rail, eyes narrowing as Ned's column wound up Visenya's hill. Beneath the direwolf banners, Petyr saw small folk press forward, eager for a glimpse of Winterfell's lord. They shouted questions about grain prices and the Mad King's final days, about whether the North truly drank blood when snows came. If Ned heard, he gave no sign. His face was set, carved from ice. "See his jaw," Petyr said softly. "How it clenches. He hates this city." Lord Hightower harumphed. "Doesn't trust cities or their games. A good sign we may all sleep easier." "A sign," said Petyr, "that someone will dream of keeping him awake." He stepped back, letting the curtain fall. "Ser Meryn, you might advise his grace that the hand's escort deserves a proper quarters. Perhaps barracks near the old stables, out of earshot of Flea Bottom's temptations." Trant gave a stiff bow and withdrew. Petyr watched him go, lips curving. Then he turned to a scribe in Arryn blue hovering near a table stacked with ledgers. "Quills ready?" Petyr asked. "Aye, my lord. Begin with a note for the Armorers' Guild. Inform them the Northmen's longsword pattern will be adopted for the next levy, 2,000 blades. Have the treasurer issue credit notes in my name." He saw the scribe blink. "A gesture of welcome," Petyr explained, "and an investment. Northern steel draws northern loyalty." The quill scratched. Coins jingled in Petyr's mind. Ned Stark supped that night in Maegor's holdfast at a walnut trestle wide as a ship. King Robert sprawled opposite him, tunic unlaced, slices of roast boar piled upon a silver dish between them. Cersei Lannister sat to Robert's right, golden hair braided like spilling sunlight, emerald eyes half-lidded. To Ned's left, Petyr reclined with one ankle propped on a velvet footstool, sipping iced hippocras. Varys floated nearby, perfumed hands fluttering like pale moths. Robert spoke through grease-slick lips. "You've grown grayer, Ned, and you scowl more than you smile. But by the 7, I'm glad you're here." He slapped the table so hard cups rattled. Ned inclined his head. "Your summons is an honor, your grace." Cersei's gaze flicked from husband to wolf. "Lord Stark's presence honors us all. I trust the cold of the journey sat well with you. It sharpened my appetite," Ned said. He cut into the boar. Petyr watched the exchange the way a cat watches birds nesting. He tasted tension. Ned weighed duty. Cersei measured threat. Robert drowned misgivings in wine that Petyr's factors shipped upriver. Only Varys seemed content to serve as breeze, slipping around words. Robert reached for a haunch. "I mean to name you Hand at Dawn. Realms in a shambles." Jon kept it together, but without him. He swallowed, shook his head. "I need you." Ned's jaw tightened. "If I serve the realm. Hard decisions will follow." Robert laughed. "Ha! Hear that, Cersei? Hard decisions. You'll make them for me, Ned, and I'll drink to your success." "Someone must mind the coin," Ned said. Petyr inclined his head. "Smile polite." "That duty is mine, my lord." Ned's eyes narrowed. "We've not spoken in years, Littlefinger." "Then we've years of catching up," Petyr said lightly. "I shall schedule it between loans and ledgers." Cersei spoke, voice silk overdrawing steel. "The Hand and the Master of Coin will have much in common. Both juggle debts, one in gold, one in lives." Robert guffawed. Petyr merely bowed his head. Inside, he tallied where each barb landed. When the meal ended, Robert lurched away with Ser Barristan. Varys dissolved into a side door. Cersei lingered, green gaze locking on Petyr. "See the Northman housed," she whispered. "And see to it he remains comfortable." "As your grace commands," Petyr murmured. He watched her go, mind humming with possibilities. A fortnight bled into the next. Ned took up chambers facing the Tower of the Hand, and each day he paced the small council like a sentinel among merchants. Grand Maester Pycelle droned about harvest yields. Varys reported smugglers on Crackclaw Point. Stannis Baratheon sent cold letters from Dragonstone complaining of crumbling fleets. In every session, Ned demanded ledgers, numbers, tallies, proof of solvency. Petyr provided scroll upon scroll. Debt to the Lannisters soaring past 4 million. Debts to the Iron Bank creeping like ivy. Debts to Tyrosh, Norvos, even Karth. Ned's mouth drew ever straighter. "Robert borrows faster than I can tally," Petyr admitted one morning as the council rose. "Yet you knew this, Lord Stark. Why else summon me north for your precious winter grain?"
Ned, Frau Ned.
"I summoned honor." Petyr's eyes softened. "And I deliver it, wrung from gold coins one by one." He stepped closer, voice low. "Permit me leeway to refinance. Seize crown lands left idle since the conquest. Sell charters to Myrish traders for exclusive harbor rights. Wealth will flow like summer wine." "Selling royal prerogative makes us beggars," Ned said. "It keeps us sovereign," Petyr countered. "A bankrupt king is a puppet." Ned studied him. Seeing a boy he once dismissed, a man who now held keys to coffers he himself had ignored. Finally he sighed. "Tread lightly. I wear dancing shoes," Petyr promised. That evening he met with Cotter Pike of the Night's Watch, newly arrived seeking men and men only. Petyr offered grain for Pike's garrison in exchange for 20 northern poachers awaiting the wall. He offered them to a Lysine broker for indenture on spice ships, pocketing the difference and sending Pike half the grain promised, enough to keep Blackcloaks grateful. 1,000 dragons of pure profit, all unseen beneath Ned's nose. A dancer indeed. Catelyn reached King's Landing with dawn fog cresting the bay like torn lace. Her barge slid past fishing boats bound for Crackclaw eels. Upon the quay, Petyr awaited, cloaked in shadow blue brocade, a single morning lily pinned above his heart. She hurried down the plank. "You wear lilies," she said, frowning. "For Jon Arryn," he murmured. "I buried sentiment with him, or I try." She squeezed his fingers. "You bury nothing." I read each letter. Every line beats like a heart. His smile flickered. Then you know Ned is uneasy. I know. She exhaled. Rabar cries for his father. Edlin catches at rumors, bastard princes and summerfling secrets. Children remember more than we think. They remember voices, Petyr said, and whispers travel faster than ravens. He gestured toward a litter. Come. The city swarms today. Indeed, crowds had thickened around the fish market, shutters slamming, a hum like bees before storm. Petyr saw gold cloaks rushing southward. Somewhere a bell clanged. What is it? Catelyn asked. His expression tightened. Fire or rumor, both spread alike. They rode uphill. At the Street of Looms, refugees from the Reach swarmed, fleeing crop blight. Half sang hymns to the Seven, half begged for work. Petyr noted it all, tallying hunger against opportunity. Hungry men hire cheaply. 1,000 such could line his ledgers. But at the Red Keep, the mood turned brittle. Cersei's household guard barred visitors. Varys flitted through corridors with stooped shoulders. Ser Jaime Lannister trained in the yard with silent fury. Petyr escorted Catelyn to chambers overlooking the Godswood Pool. Ned will join us by dusk, he said. In the meantime, rest. Rest. Her brows knit. While lords sharpen knives? He brushed her cheek. Knives have always glinted. We simply polish ours brighter. She caught his wrist. Promise me you do not sharpen them toward Ned. My love. He kissed her palm. Ned is steel. I need but bend it, not break. She looked away. Steel bends only so far. Then I shall heat it gently. He smiled and left before she could reply. That afternoon the small council met with torches lit despite sun outside. So thick hung the pall. Ned stood at table's head. Pycelle shuffled scrolls. Renly Baratheon leaned bored against a pillar. Varys whispered of sudden deaths. 3 street singers who had boasted in taverns they knew secrets of the queen. Poison in their cups, the eunuch sighed. A most silent verse. Ned's teeth ground. 1 John, now singers. Is truth so perilous? Cersei's absence yawned like a void. Petyr cleared his throat. We chase shadows. Truth is seldom killed. Only those who carry it. He unfurled a parchment. Meanwhile, the city lacks coin for winter stores. I propose auctioning vacant domains to guilds. Long leases, 40 years. Gold spent on grain before frost claims next year's seedlings. Pycelle nodded sagely. Sound policy.
Ned rubbed temples.
And crown lands shrink. Crown lands feed empty bellies, Petyr said. Or are titles sustenance? Renly chuckled.
Ned glared.
Put it to the king, Ned ordered. But I want full accounting. You shall have it, Petyr promised. He left council chambers with scrolls underarm, a rhythmic hush of soft-soled boots on marble. Turning a corner, he saw Varys drift behind. They walked a stretch in silence until Petyr spoke. You lose singers. I lose coin, he said. Unfortunate. Some songs cost too dearly. Varys folded plump hands. Others buy futures. Do they? Petyr smiled thinly. Tell me, have you chosen which tune plays next? The eunuch's eyes glimmered. I serve the realm. So do I, Petyr replied. We merely differ on which realm we prefer. Varys bowed ever so slightly. The realm of Littlefinger's dreams is gilded with cunning. And paid for in full, Petyr said and strode on. That night, storms gathered over Blackwater Bay. Lightning forked above masts. Ned paced his chambers, reading a letter from Winterfell, Robb's neat hand telling of gray wolves sighted near White Harbor, of rangers visiting. Ned's heart clenched. He half considered returning north. He half considered burning the city down to free himself. Instead, he poured wine and waited for Petyr. The master of coin arrived at moonrise. He dismissed guards, closed doors. Rain hammered shutters. Catelyn is safe, Petyr began. I know, Ned said curtly. Your men trail her like hounds. She worries. Petyr shrugged. A husband protects. A spider weaves. Ned tossed scrolls onto the table. Your loans to Bravos worsen interest. You've mortgaged the tolls at Maidenpool for 7 years. To keep bread in ovens. Petyr's voice was mild. Would you rather riots? I would rather honesty. Honesty? Petyr's eyes sparked. Very well, honesty. Robert spends like a Pentoshi whoremaster. The Lannisters lend at usurious rates and expect favors repaid in gold or blood. Your king eats himself drunk each night while lions plot to muzzle wolves. My choices are famine or compromise. I choose compromise. Ned's hands clenched.
Compromise budget corruption.
Petyr stepped closer. Lightning lit his face. So does starvation. In the silence, rain thrummed like distant drums.
Ned exhaled.
If you imperil the North's honor, I will oppose you. Petyr's smile was sad. You oppose necessity then. He turned toward the door. I must review port tariffs. Ned, Petyr added, using the name like a knife's edge, trust me to keep your people fed, and trust me to keep cats safe. He left without waiting for reply. Days dripped like candle wax. Whispers seeped from brothels that King Robert planned a tourney for his name day. 40,000 dragons in prizes. Petyr leaked the rumor himself, ensuring the crown would sponsor half, the other half borrowed from his own accounts at Qohor. The city sprang to life. Smiths forged armor day and night. Innkeepers doubled rents. Even the hungry smiled at prospect of coin trickling down.
Ned railed.
We cannot afford a tourney. Petyr bowed. We cannot afford not to. Joy buys loyalty.
Joy buys complacency. Ned groveled.
It buys time, Petyr corrected. Time to dig us out of debt. He said nothing of the side bargain with Lord Grafton in Gulltown. A percentage of tourney wagers funneled through Baelish-owned counting houses. Profits would triple his loan. Meanwhile, Catelyn visited the Eyrie, carrying letters for Lysa. Petyr told her to reassure Lysa the North would send grain come autumn. Secretly, he told Lysa something else. That Cersei plotted to seize the Aerys' young falcons as hostages should Robert fall ill, and only Petyr's counsel to Varys kept the queen at bay. Lysa's reply trembled with gratitude and desperation to see him. Petyr folded her words into another ledger. In the September of Baelor, Ned prayed at dawn, alone beneath stained glass kings. Petyr entered silently, the echo of boots' long corridors behind. He watched Ned kneel before the warrior. Do gods hear coin? Ned asked without turning. They prefer gold candles, Petyr said, but they'll settle for incense. Ned rose. Catelyn writes that Edlyn fears streets at night. She hears screams. Flea-bottom screams nightly. Petyr shrugged. Yet morning still breaks. Unless dishonor shrouds the sun. Petyr's lips twitched. Dishonor, such a northern word. He clasped hands behind back. You see dirt. I see soil. Things grow in soil. Rot grows too. So does grain, Petyr countered softly. And wildflowers. He tilted his head. Come to the tourney, Ned. Smile for the people. Show them the North loves the realm. But Ned left the sept without answer, cloak swirling like a storm cloud. Tourney banners unfurled under a blinding sky. Pavilions bloomed pink and crimson, jade and violet across the field outside the city. Thousands gathered. Knights on chargers draped in sigils, hedge spearmen brandishing half-moon shields, sellswords hoping to unhorse a lord and ransom horse and harness. The crowd roar rolled like surf when Robert arrived in a gilded litter larger than a barge, dwarfing the queen's palanquin behind. Petyr surveyed from the royal box, ledger open on his lap. Wagers scribbled in a code of dots and strokes only he could read. At his elbow, Renly plied handsome Ser Loras Tyrell with compliments. Cersei lounged, green eyes cold. Ned stood stiff near Robert, arms folded. First match. Ser Gregor Clegane against Ser Hovaris Mars Wood. A spindly knight from the Stormlands. Petyr wrote 2 quick symbols, heavy wager on Clegane to win in a single pass. He saw Mareswood's squire adjust a faulty girth. He saw fear in Mareswood's helm tilt. Predictable outcome. The mountain's lance shattered Mareswood's shield, breaking 3 ribs. Petyr's purse fattened by noon. Between tilts, vendors circulated. fried lark pies, flagons of strong wine. Petyr tasted one, sour but profitable. He owned the casks. During the melee, Varys slipped into the box, murmured to Petyr behind a fan. Whispers say the queen meets her brother after dusk. The hand should not know. Petyr's eyes did not leave the clashing knights. Then the hand must learn. Risky, Varys breathed. The lioness has claws. Every beast can be baited. You play with wildfire. I play with fortunes. That night Ned received an unsigned note. The lion and the queen hold council in the tower where moonlight hides no sin. He read it thrice, brow furrowed. He summoned Petyr. Is this your doing? Petyr's smile was small. What doing? I'll not stoop to spying, Ned said, yet frustration etched his lines. Truth often demands knees. Petyr shrugged. But it's your choice. Ned crushed the note, parted, torn between honor and curiosity. Petyr watched him go, feeling threads tighten. The next dusk, Ned followed shadows through deserted corridors, Ser Jorah Castle at his side. They reached the tower of the Hand's upper gallery where a passage bridged to Maegor's holdfast. Voices drifted, whispers, a man's low laugh, a woman's sigh. Ned motioned Jorah back, crept forward. Through an unlatched door, he glimpsed candlelight on gilt armor, Ser Jaime. Another figure, slender, golden-haired, moved close. Cersei. Ned recoiled as if struck. Incest. Treason. He nearly drew sword. Instead he fled. He rode to Petyr's solar, storming in. Did you know? He demanded. Petyr closed a ledger. I know many things. Lightning flashed outside though sky was clear. Ned's thunder alone. This secret could ruin kingdoms, Ned hissed. And there's the coin, Petyr said softly. Ruin or riches, depending who spends it.
Ned stared.
You intend blackmail? I intend leverage. Petyr rose, meeting Ned's glare. The queen and her kin hold Robert's purse. We hold theirs. Balance. Ned, you want honor. I give you weight to tip scales toward righteousness without war.
No, Ned breathed.
I'll not trade honor for extortion. Petyr lifted his hands. Then hold the secret, but be ready when lions circle. He walked to a window, looking out over tawny tents teeming like colored fungi. Tomorrow Ser Loras faces the mountain. Odds favor Clegane, but hearts favor Tyrell. Would you silence hearts or place a quiet wager? Ned turned away, disgusted. But when he left, a spark of doubt flickered. Petyr touched the chilly glass. He felt the city vibrate. Loots, cheers, screams, whispered scandal. Each sound was a coin he could stack, a blade he could sheathe or draw. He thought of Catelyn sleeping in Riverrun chambers, trusting. Of Lisa in the Eyrie, desperate. Of Edlin dreaming of falcons. Of Rabar learning sword forms from a Bravosi master Petyr hired. The realm tangled around him like puppet strings. He whispered to the glass, perhaps to himself, all men gamble, but few know the stakes. Next day the joust final pitted Ser Loras, smiling helm-plumed green, against Ser Gregor, a mountain of iron rage. Petyr placed heavy coin on Loras. The council sneered. The lords roared when Gregor thundered forward. They gasped when Loras angled his horse at last instant, rose petals fluttering from his shield. Gregor's lance thrust air, missing. Loras's tip struck shield rim, glanced, but momentum and skill toppled the giant. The crowd exploded. Wagers changed hands. Petyr's purse swelled again. Gregor, enraged, swung sword at Loras. Chaos. Hounds barked, horses screamed. The hound intervened, steel ringing on steel. Robert bellowed for peace. Petyr watched, expression unreadable, as gold cloaks poured in. Later, in the royal box, Renly laughed. Littlefinger, you've doubled your fortunes thrice. I place trust in petals, Petyr said. And in whispers, Varys added under breath. Petyr met the eunuch's eyes. Whispers are petals, light, yet can choke throats. Below, Ned brooded. Petyr approached. My lord, what tricks gave Tyrell the edge? Ned asked. Observation, Petyr said. Small folk saw Loras exchange horses, one mare in heat. The mountain rides only stallions. Rage blinded him. Ned shook his head. Often you speak in riddles. Life is a riddle, Petyr replied. We bridge gaps with guesses. The tourney's final feast saw Cersei absent, claiming illness. Robert drank alone, morose. Ned found Petyr near a wall of tapestries depicting Nymeria's landing. He pulled him aside. I've decided, Ned said, voice tight. I write to Stannis. He served on the small council. He'll know proofs. If Joffrey is not Robert's son. Petyr's hand shot to Ned's elbow. Do nothing yet. Nothing? Children born of incest sit the line of succession. Petyr's eyes blazed. So crown passes to Stannis. A man no one loves, with no treasury, no allies. War follows, the city burns. Your north bleeds. Truth outweighs risk. Truth, Petyr hissed, must be timed. He leaned closer. You have leverage to reshape the realm without war. Marry Sansa to Joffrey, bind North to throne. When Robert dies, guide the boy, remove Cersei by quieter means. Peace. Ned recoiled. You would let a bastard king rule? A boy raised Stark, Petyr countered. Your honor shaping him. Use the queen's secret to keep her docile. No. So you choose war. Petyr's voice chilled. Then I must choose sides. Catelyn will stand with me, Ned said. Petyr's lips pressed white. Yes, he said softly. I suppose she will. He bowed and withdrew. That night he found Catelyn in their solar, hair unbound like copper silk. She smiled until she saw his eyes. What's wrong? She asked. Your brother stands on a cliff, Petyr said. He poured dark wine. He may leap, dragging us all. Catelyn's face fell. He means well. So did Brandon. Petyr pressed a goblet into her hands. I have protected this realm, our children's realm, by balancing knives. Ned would scatter them. He will do what's right. Right? Petyr echoed. And the graves will be right and cold. He sat beside her. Help me sway him. Catelyn's expression pained. I will speak with him. Tonight, Petyr urged. Before letters ride. He captured her hand. For Edlin. For Rabar. She nodded slowly, tears glimmering. Petyr kissed her brow, then rose. In the doorway he glanced back, a silhouette against torchlight. His heart ached, but his mind raced. If Ned could not be bent, he would break, and Petyr must brace for shattering. The morrow dawned iron gray. A raven thudded against Ned's window, scroll sealed in crimson. He slit wax, read, Come alone. God's wood.
Urgent.
He went sword at hip. Morning dew silvered every leaf, air thick with cedar scent. At the heart tree Petyr stood cloaked in mist, only mockingbird pin gleaming. Cat says you will not be swayed, Petyr greeted. Ned's hand touched hilt. I swore to her to hear you, but my course is set. Then hear my offer, Petyr said. You speak, I listen. Together we present truth to Robert, privately. Robert banishes Cersei. Stannis becomes heir's regent under your guidance. I manage coin. Cat guides queenly matters. No war. Ned shook his head. Robert will kill the children. Jordan's mercy flows only for comrades. Petyr stepped closer. I can smuggle them to Bravos. They vanish. Realm stable.
Ned hesitated.
You would arrange this? For my children's safety. Petyr's eyes shone. And yours. Rain began to fall, pattering leaves like small drums. Ned's gaze drifted to the heart tree's face. Tears of red sap weeping. He sighed. I will consider. Petyr exhaled. Delay letters for 3 days. Let me craft the plan. Ned nodded once, turned away. Petyr watched him depart beneath dripping boughs. Raindrops traced his cheeks. Whether Sky's tears or his own, he scarcely knew. When Ned's form vanished, Petyr whispered to the weeping face, Forgive me. He slid a dirk from sleeve, wiped rain from its edge, and cut 3 small roots at the tree's base, a Bravosi superstition for binding oaths. The heart tree did not bleed. Perhaps tears were spent. He left God's wood, stepping into a castle waking under storm clouds. And though his steps were soft, their echoes rang like drums of destiny, slow, relentless, beating toward a realm poised on the tip of a mockingbird's quill. 3 nights later, a sudden fever gripped King Robert after a boar hunt gone awry. The council gathered at bedside, stench of infection clawing their senses. Robert's breath rattled. Cersei stood triumphant yet tearful, crown gleaming in torch glare. Petyr slipped into the corridor, parchment clutched. Robert's barely legible will naming Ned Protector. He had helped draft it hours before, ink still drying. Now he hurried toward the royal seal. In the gloom he met Varys. "The queen moves to hide the will," Petyr said. Varys inclined his bald head. "And you, leverage," Petyr breathed. "Offer Cersei exile for her children's safety. She leaves quietly. Ned rules as regent. The lioness will not abandon cubs," Varys warned. "Then she faces wolves." They parted. Petyr's heart hammered like forge hammers. The game's next turn balanced on this single stroke of sealing wax. He opened the door to the royal scribe's chamber and felt a blade kiss his throat. Ser Mandon Moore stood, eyes lifeless as pewter. "Orders, my lord," he intoned. Petyr froze. "From whom?" "Her Grace." Behind Moore, 2 Lannister guards barred window and door. Petyr's mind raced. Cersei acted faster. Perhaps Varys whispered. Perhaps Ned wavered. Survival first. He raised palms. "Ser Mandon, you serve the realm. Release me and double your pay." Moore's sword pricked skin. "I serve the queen." "Queens change," Petyr whispered. The sword advanced, but Moore's eyes flicked left. Footsteps. Petyr lunged, slamming ledger into Moore's wrist. Blade scraped past cheek. Guard sprang. Petyr dove beneath desk. A mace crashed into ledger wood. Splinters flew. Petyr rolled, seized inkwell, flung it. Ink blinded a guard. Screams. Moore swung again, too slow. Petyr's dirk flashed, carving thigh. Blood hissed. Door burst inward. Samwell Stone and 2 Vale men answering Petyr's secret signal. Blue falcons on shields. They charged. In the melee, Petyr crawled free. He saw blood on his own hands, felt warm trickle down neck. No time. He sprinted into corridor, heart banging. Down spiral stairs, through servants' passages, into the belly of Maegor's holdfast. Voices echoed, "Seal the gates!" Petyr ducked into a scullery, breath ragged. He pressed fingers to throat. Shallow cut only. Outside, thunder rolled though sky was clear. War inside castle walls. Petyr straightened, smoothing hair. He still clutched Robert's will. He whispered, "All men gamble," and stepped into the storm he had called. Lightning split the sky above King's Landing and held for a heartbeat. A jagged vein of white that bared every rooftop, battlement, and spire. In that instant, the Red Keep appeared carved from ivory and blood, its towers etched by silver flame, and then the night swallowed all again. Petyr Baelish pressed a blood-damp cloth to his neck as he hurried through a servant's postern at the base of Maegor's holdfast. Behind him, the main corridors rang with bootfalls and shouted orders, Lannister voices high with urgency. Somewhere a horn sounded 3 short blasts, the alarm for an intruder at the royal apartments, and Petyr allowed himself a thin smile. Let them hunt shadows while the mockingbird flew elsewhere. He moved with calculated haste along a gallery lined by narrow arrow slits. Pale blue moonlight slanted across the flagstones, striping his boots. The cut at his throat stung when he swallowed, but it was shallow, no deeper than the first slash Brandon Stark had carved into his skin years ago. Pain sharpened thought. He pictured the assassin's blade flashing in the lamplight of the royal scribe's chamber, remembered the dull thud when Samwell Stone's mace struck bone, the whimper of a guard drowning in his own ink-bound blood. Costly but necessary. Nothing worth winning came without a toll. At the gallery's end, a hidden door stood behind a hanging tapestry of Queen Visenya clasping Dark Sister. Petyr slipped inside and descended a tight spiral no wider than his shoulders. The torch he carried sputtered and smoked. Stale dust churned under his boots. Once, long ago, Maegor hid traitor heads in these walls. Petyr's head would remain firmly on his neck if he acted faster than the lions. The stair disgorged him into a low cellar lit by 2 guttering lamps. Iron-bound chests lined the walls. Here lay the emergency coffers of the small council, coin enough for a single regiment's pay, coin he himself had ordered relocated for safekeeping 2 nights prior. He forced open one lid. Gold dragons gleamed in neat leather sacks. He scooped 4 into a satchel and cinched it tight. Then, from his doublet, he drew Robert's will, crease-crushed, yet still bearing the king's crabbed signature and the smear of purple sealing wax he had stolen from the royal seal before fleeing. Proof, if Ned Stark dared brandish it, that Robert wished him protector. Proof, if Petyr played it right, that the realm itself could hinge on a sheet of parchment he now slid between 2 heavy ledgers inside the satchel. Coin kept parchment safe. Boots thudded on the stair above, a patrol ahead of the search net widening. Petyr slung the sack over his shoulder and darted through another door into a wine cellar. Barrels of Dornish red towered 3 high. He slipped between casks, found the false barrel head he had loosened last winter while exploring the keep's forgotten passages. A push, a scrape of wood, and he wriggled into a darkness that smelled of old chalk and salt. He crawled along the rat-run tunnel until it widened enough to stand, then took an upward branch that emerged behind the kitchen scullery. Voices echoed beyond the wall, washerwomen panicking, shouting of poisoned king and Queen Cersei's order. Good. The story of Littlefinger's death would spread faster than any truth so long as his blood prints dotted the scribe's floor. Beyond the scullery lay a colonnade opening onto the outer ward. He eased a shutter and stared out. Torches guttered in the gusty dark, casting halos of gold across slick flagstones. A dozen gold cloaks formed ranks near the east gate, taking orders from Janos Slynt, Lord Commander of the City Watch. Near them, Ser Boros Blunt stood in white plate, arms folded. Lannister crimson cloaks ringed the gatehouse, their surcoats dark as drying roses. The 2 forces eyed one another with the wary stillness of wolves circling. Petyr noted numbers. 30 gold cloaks.
20 Lannister guards.
Ratios favored the watch if its officers stayed loyal. He slipped into the night, hugging the arcade's shadows until he reached a covered stair descending toward the dungeons. At the landing halfway down, a wide arch opened onto the keep's cistern gallery, a damp hall seldom patrolled. There he found Samwell Stone and 2 Vale men, blades drawn. "My lord," Samwell whispered, eyes flicking to the bandage at Petyr's neck. "You live." "For the moment," Petyr said. "Any sign of Catelyn?" "She is still in her apartments with the children. The Queen's Guard tried to fetch her, but your men barred the door." "Good," he considered. "We must move them. If Cersei secures the keep, she will seize hostages." Samwell's jaw tightened. "Where?" "To the Vale Embassy House by the river. Secret stairs through the lower cloisters. I will send word." Petyr untied the satchel, spilled 2 sacks of dragons into Samwell's hands. "Bribe who you must, kill who you must not. Keep Edlin safe, whatever else happens." "Aye." Samwell's fist closed around the coin like a gauntlet tightening. "And you?" "I have debts to call." Petyr clasped the knight's shoulder. "Go." When they vanished down the stair, Petyr retraced his path to the colonnade, ignoring the burn in his throat. He needed Janos Slynt. Slynt stood under a dripping gargoyle, oilskin cloak pulled tight, cursing the rain. 2 lanterns painted his blunt features yellow and black. When Petyr stepped from the darkness, Janos started, hand on sword. "7 hells, Littlefinger? They said you were slain." "Not yet." Petyr touched his bandage. "Her Grace mislaid an assassin." Slynt's gaze darted. "Queen says someone forged a will. Gold price on your head." "She paid you?" Petyr asked mildly. 5,000 dragons, Slynt admitted. Petyr allowed a thin laugh. "I'll treble it." "Treble?" Slynt's tongue wet his lip. Petyr opened the satchel just enough for gold glint and flash of waxed parchment. "You will receive 15 the moment you escort Lord Stark and me to the council chamber safely. along with 50 positions in the watch to men of your choosing and a charter for harbor tolls at the mud gate. All signed when the new regent sits hand's chair. Slint swallowed. And if the queen wins? She will hang you to hush your treason. Petyr let that settle. Your allegiance buys her nothing. She already assumes she owns you. But switch your weight tonight, and you sit atop a fortune. Thunder rumbled. Slint looked past Petyr to where the Lannister guards lounged near the gate, cocky in the knowledge of Lyon's power. His shoulders squared. I'll need coin up front. My captains will want proof. Petyr lifted a seal ring. A third now, 2/3 after. He dropped a heavy purse into Slint's hand. Strike when I raise 2 fingers to my throat. The Starks will be waiting at the upper bailey. Slint nodded once, then called an order. Gold cloaks shuffled, adjusting helms and spears. Petyr melted back into shadow. Lord Eddard Stark waited in the damp undercroft beneath the Tower of the Hand, sword unsheathed, cloak pressed to his shoulders in case of watchers above. He had come with his steward Tomard and 2 guards only, as Petyr had requested, though misgiving soured his gut. From the far passage footfalls approached. Littlefinger's voice called low.
Ned.
Stark stepped forward. You live, by luck and faster feet than the queen expected. Petyr offered the satchel. Proof of Robert's will, and coin to win Slint. Ned examined the purple wax, the spidery signature. We present this to council. Directly, Petyr finished, before Cersei can muster a counterclaim. Tomard shifted. And the prince. Joffrey sits in the solar, ignorant of half the realm. We need not harm boys. Petyr's eyes shone briefly. Only dethrone 1 woman. Ned's jaw hardened. If Robert dies, Joffrey is yet a bastard born. Stannis stands next. I know. Petyr's tone was soft as falling ash. But let Joffrey serve as catspaw. Keep him docile under North and Vale Regency. Remove Cersei quietly. Ferry her and her younger children across the narrow sea. Peaceful, bloodless. Ned looked at him as though seeing frost on green leaves. You speak of treason cloaked in peace. I speak of children spared blades, Petyr countered, and of a realm spared fire. Ned raised the parchment. Truth is sharper than any blade. I'll not wield lies. Petyr's eyes flickered. Hurt or calculation, hard to tell. Then I stand with you. He turned toward the stair. Come. Time dwindles. They ascended into the upper bailey. Rain slanted sideways across torches. Slint waited beside 2 ranks of gold cloaks, helmet visors dripping. When Ned Ged they saluted smartly. Lines of Lannister guards still blocked the east gate, but Janos's men now outnumbered them. Petyr raised his hand to throat. 2 fingers. A whistle pierced the air. Gold cloaks dropped shields, feigning rest. Then, in a motion like wheat bowing before wind, half pivoted and smashed spear butts into Lannister knees. The other half lunged, pikes hooking crimson capes, wrenching them to mud.
Stilrang.
In under a minute, the red cloaks lay subdued, swords kicked aside.
Ned stared.
Efficient. Coin sharpens efficiency, Petyr observed. They crossed the bailey under escort and entered Maegor's holdfast by the servants' door, passing cold hallways echoing with distant shouts. At the council chamber they found Pycelle, Renly Baratheon, and Varys already seated, candlelight flickering on anxious faces. Renly's eyes widened at the sight of Ned's drawn sword. Ser Jaime seized the throne room, Renly blurted. The queen claims the king named Joffrey heir. Robert still lives but lies senseless. We have Robert's written will naming Lord Stark protector, Petyr announced, lifting parchment. Pycelle's mouth opened. May I see? Ned passed it across. Pycelle bent near the candle, brow furrowing. The seal appears true. Varys's voice floated like silk smoke. A boon for stability indeed. Renly's fingers drummed table wood. Can we act before the queen rallies the household guard? We have the city watch, Petyr said, nodding to Slint at his shoulder. If we march now, we secure the throne room. Ned sheathed ice with finality. Then let us go. The throne room doors boomed under the butts of halberds. Within, Ser Jaime's voice barked orders. When iron hinges buckled, gold cloaks surged. Torches leapt, shadows flailed. Petyr hung back in the inner corridor, watching Slint's men pour through. He counted heartbeats, estimated angles, gauged where best to stand when history pivoted. Screams cleaved the hall as the first rank of gold cloaks met Lannister halberds. Ned strode behind them, ice raised high, cloak streaming wolf-gray. Jaime appeared beneath high windows, long golden hair plastered to his brow, white cloak swirling. Steel kissed steel, sparks spat across marble. Petyr set coin on marble bench and spoke into a gold cloak captain's ear, pointing at vantage balconies. Flanking squads peeled away to ascend. His plan: encircle, pin, subdue. No need to slay the Kingslayer. Taking him captive was worth more than 70 coffers. Yet battle is wind-blown parchment. A Lannister spearman broke through ranks, drove point toward Ned's ribs. Tomard intercepted, screaming as blades skewered his thigh. Ned swung ice in a liquid arc, severing shaft and arm alike. Blood sheeted the floor, slick beneath boots. At the dais, the Iron Throne loomed darkly, its blades catching torchfire. Cersei stood before it in black mourning dress, Joffrey at her side, crown like a circlet of antlers clutched in tiny hands. Her eyes fixed on Petyr across the chaos. Hatred so pure it stilled him. She drew back behind the throne as if the jagged swords were fangs to guard her. Petyr gestured, 3 gold cloaks advanced. Jaime, seeing them, released a whistle, and 4 red cloaks leapt from behind pillars. They clashed beneath the throne's barbs. Glittering steel shrieked. Suddenly a roar. Jan Barleycorn, broad-shouldered gold cloak corporal, collapsed clutching neck where an arrow jutted. From the mezzanine above, crossbows, Lannister men disguised as servants, loosed a volley into the scrum.
Petyr cursed.
He had counted numbers, not hidden archers. Slint bellowed orders. Shields lifted. 2 gold cloaks went down. Ned angled toward the dais. Jaime intercepted, meeting ice with gilded longsword. Their blades rang. Petyr felt battle tithe his breath, every clash paying a coin of strength. He scanned for Edlin's pale face, though she should be safe by river. Still, his heart thumped fear. Renly's royal guard barged through side doors then, horned stags on shields. They cut between archers and balustrade. Crossbows scrambled, some leaping to floor only to meet pikes. Petyr seized the moment. He stepped upon a base of overturned brazier, vaulted onto throne dais. Joffrey shrank back, crown tumbling. Cersei hissed. "My lady," Petyr said, voice velvet over razors. "The realm thanks you for surrender." Cersei laughed, a raw, ragged sound. "Will you murder a queen, Baelish? Murder? Never." He bowed shallowly. "I offer escort to ships waiting on the Blackwater. Safe passage east for you and your younger children in exchange for silence." "Silence? Joffrey is king." Petyr cocked his head. "Bastard born of incest, proven by the late king's will." He lifted parchment for her to see. Torchlight danced on wax. "Stay and you die. Flee, and you live to guide Tommen and Myrcella to gentle shores." Tears welled, surprise more than grief. "You would cast a boy to oblivion?" "He will be remembered," Petyr said softly, "by a realm that did not burn." Below, Jaime disengaged from Ned by a feint, sprinted toward dais. Petyr braced, but Janos Slint emerged from melee, swinging heavy poleaxe, intercepting Jaime. With smashed steel, Jaime reeled. Cersei reached for Joffrey's hand. "We leave," she whispered with sudden clarity. She tugged the boy behind the throne into the passage. Petyr waved 2 gold cloaks to follow. Jaime saw retreat. Fury twisted his beautiful face. He hurled his sword at Petyr, blade whirling end over end. Petyr ducked. Steel clanged on blade barbs of the throne, sparking. Gold cloaks closed on Kingslayer. Ned limped toward dais, armor dented, a cut on cheek. "Where is the queen?" "Choosing exile," Petyr said, heartbeat racing. "You promised capture. I promised peace." Petyr extended parchment. Seal Robert's will and seat Stannis once he arrives. In the meantime, we hold the city together. Ned's gaze pierced. This blood is on you, and yours upon me as well. Petyr smiled without mirth. We are partners now. The Queen's absence quelled resistance faster than any order. By dawn, gold cloaks patrolled streets. Red cloaks surrendered when news spread of Cersei's flight and Jaime's capture. Varys moved like a silent wraith through bedchambers, collecting secrets from sobbing handmaids. Pycelle tended Robert, though Maester and eunuch agreed the king would not last the day. Renly vanished with his retainers, rumor placing him on the Rose Road with 100 Stormland knights. Petyr cared little. New pieces always appeared. He dispatched ravens. To Stannis on Dragonstone, inviting him to claim the throne. To Lysa, informing her the children were safe and the Vale must ready 3,000 spears to march. To White Harbor, requesting grain convoys. To Bravos, instructing captains to prepare fast galleys under fictitious flags. He wrote until his fingers cramped, sealing letters with green wax imprinted by Mockingbird. He felt as though he penned the world anew. Ned found him in the Council Solar overlooking Blackwater Bay. Sunrise wash sails gold. The smell of burnt oil lingered from torches snuffed an hour prior. Robert is dead, Ned said, voice soft. Petyr set quill down. The realm mourns. Your queen sails downriver aboard a Pentoshi cog with Lannister gold. My queen, Petyr arched a brow. I have but one queen, Catelyn. He gestured at ledgers. See here, coin borrowed on Vale credit to fund grain imports while we await winter. The city hungers. Ned paced. Stannis will brook no deception. He will demand heads. Petyr folded hands. And he shall have them, Lannister heads, perhaps. Not ours. We save children, Ned. Remember. Thunder rumbled from a far squall. Gulls shrieked. Ned sighed, staring out over bright water. I return to Winterfell when Stannis arrives. And your title of protector? Temporary. Petyr nodded. Then before you depart, appoint a master of laws amenable to North and Vale both. Ned eyed him. You hold coin enough already. A man of letters, perhaps.
Ser Brinden.
He loathes courts. Then Benjen Stark, Petyr suggested lightly, though he knew the Night's Watch bound Benjen.
Ned grunted.
I will think on it. Think quickly. Petyr rose, stepping to window. Winter is not the only chill creeping south. Word of Robert's death spread like flame across dry rushes. Bells tolled from the September of Baelor. Shopkeepers shuttered stalls. Dockworkers paused mid-heave, hats in hand. Small folk flocked to the streets, unsure whether to fear war or famine more. Petyr had prepared for both. Wagons of fresh bread rolled from Crown bakeries at dawn, each loaf stamped with a mockingbird perched upon direwolf and falcon. Hungry men blessed the sigil and broke crusts. Some looked to the Red Keep with cautious hope. Outside the mud gate, 3 Pentoshi cogs sailed under stripes of turquoise and white. Petyr's chartered ships carrying Cersei, her children, and 50 loyal guards. From the quay, he watched their sails unfurl. No banners flew, only bare poles. By the time Stannis' outriders reached the city, the cogs would be half across the narrow sea. Stannis would roar, lords would mutter, but no innocent child would bleed under the red god's sky. Petyr could stomach Stannis' ire. A realm intact was profit enough. That eve, Petyr convened the Gold Cloak's captains in the torchlit courtyard of the Gate of the Gods. Rain misted. Yano Slint stood proud beneath new crimson epaulets, symbols of rank he had purchased with coin and risk. Petyr addressed them from a wooden dais. Men of the Watch, you saved this city from slaughter. You fed children while lords bickered. You stand between chaos and peace. He tossed sacks of silver onto a table. Here is your reward, 3 months bonus pay, and promise of steady coin so long as loyalty endures. A cheer rose, echoing beneath stone arches. Lord Stark serves as protector until King Stannis arrives, Petyr continued. Obey him as you obey me. The Vale stands with the North. Together we guard the dawn. Slint raised spear in salute. The men answered. After, Petyr descended, cloak sodden, and Slint clasped his arm. "City's yours now." "Ours," Petyr corrected. He handed Slint another purse. "Spread these among your sergeants." Slint grinned. "Aye." Petyr left through the rain-drenched garden where fireflies flickered like embers. Catelyn awaited beneath an arbor of drooping wisteria, her mantle clasped at her throat. When she saw him, she exhaled relief. He kissed her gloved hands. "Edlin sleeps. Rabar plays with carved ships," she whispered. "Word is chaos in the market." "Chaos is a ladder," Petyr murmured. "And its rungs slick with blood." She searched his face. "How many fell?" "Fewer than would have." He took her arm, guiding toward palace. "Come." "I will tell you all." They walked under dripping leaves, their steps soft. Far off, the bells told a slow dirge for King Robert. Yet in Petyr's ears another sound rose. Gold coins clinking, ravens winging, gears turning in a machine only he fully grasped. He tightened his fingers around Catelyn's, feeling pulse of life, hers, his, the realms, racing beneath skin. In the dungeons of the Red Keep, Ser Jaime Lannister sat chained to a wall of black stone. Torchlight painted his face bronze, hair matted by dried blood. Ned Stark entered with Ser Jorah, grim. Jaime's lips curled. "Come to gloat, Stark?" "To offer mercy," Ned said. "Confess treason. Forswear claim to thrones for Lannister blood. And you will sail to Casterly Rock under guard." Jaime laughed. "Mercy from the man who helped petty Baelish steal a crown? You wear hypocrisy well." Ned's jaw worked. "Children spared your arrogance. Thank the gods." Jaime's eyes glittered. "Spare me sermons. I killed Ares to save a city. What did you do tonight? You aided a schemer who sells peace at price of lies." Ned turned away. "Think on my offer. Ask Baelish to think for me," Jaime called after. His chains rattled. Outside the cell, Jorah murmured, "He will not yield." "Perhaps not," Ned said, heart heavy. "But Petyr's world leaves little room for honor." 2 weeks later, Stannis Baratheon's fleet anchored off Dragonstone and launched galleys north. Raven scrolls arrived. Stannis demanded the city open gates, Jaime's head, and immediate coronation. Ned read the letters by candle in Eddard's solar while Petyr leaned at the window. "He will want blood," Ned said. "Give him Jaime and Pycelle," Petyr suggested. "Placate wrath." "Pycelle?" "He served the queen's poison, if rumor holds." "Remove Deadwood." Ned shook head. "You carve the realm like a ledger." "And you bleed it with principle," Petyr replied gently. Rain drummed the casement. Finally Ned sighed. "Very well, but Jaime must stand trial first." "Of course." Petyr smiled, knowing trials could be timed like harvests. He drafted letters again, to Stannis pledging loyalty and counsel, to the Iron Bank assuring repayment schedules with new tariff profits, to the merchants of Tyrosh inviting bids on silk imports. Each line wove coins into power, power into security. That night he found Catelyn in her solar reading a letter from Lisa. Tears shone. "She thinks you orchestrated Jon Arryn's death," Cat whispered, voice breaking. "She says beware the mockingbird who shares your bed." Pain flashed, then calculation. "She grieves and fears," Petyr soothed. "Jon's death was Queen's doing. Let time temper her." But inside he felt tremor. Lisa beloved, Lisa betrayed, dangerous. He wrapped arms around Cat. "Trust me." "I do," she murmured, though doubt lingered in her eyes like storm clouds beyond a window. Moonless night cloaked the city when Petyr climbed the narrow stairs to the rookery. Maester Porin dozed at his desk, candle sputtering. Petyr penned a message in cipher known only to 2 masters in Lys and Bravos. Whispers confirmed. "Suitors soon. Prepare safe nest for sparrow and gold." He tied parchment to Raven's leg, opened shutters. The bird flapped into night. Below, torches flickered along walls patrolled by gold cloaks now wearing small mockingbird badges on their belts. Ned allowed them, symbol of reward, he said, unaware of deeper meaning. Petyr descended, feeling every step weightless. In the courtyard, Slint approached. 5 merchants from Pentos ask audience tomorrow.
Passage charter.
Granted. And a messenger from Storm's End. See him at dawn. Petyr brushed past. He reached his own apartments. Tapestries of Vale valleys, a bed carved with leaping trout, all token gifts from Tully and Aaron. But his real kingdom lay outside those walls, in ledgers, coin purses, and secrets whispered in darkness. He sat at a writing desk, unfolded a fresh parchment, dipped quill. To my loyal agents in Old Town, he began, the time approaches. Spread word that winter grain will be dear. Invest now in reserves and hold them. When snow falls, release slowly at thrice purchase price. Profit will fund the hand's new fleets. Ink glistened. He signed only with the mockingbird. As he sanded the page, he paused, listening to the night. Distant bells no longer tolled. The city rested for now. He rubbed the bandage scar on his neck. Small price. He thought of Lisa's letter, Jaime's chains, Stannis's demands, Ned's weary eyes, Catelyn's faltering trust. All pieces on a board of 7 kingdoms. He whispered to the darkness, not prayer but promise. Little birds sing loudest before dawn. Then he folded parchment, sealed with wax, and rang for a courier. The night was far from over, and Petyr Baelish had kingdoms still to win. Snow flurried against the crenellations of the Red Keep, swirling like pale moths caught in the fitful updrafts off the Blackwater. Though it was only the season's first dusting, a fragile southern snow that melted upon the tiles as soon as it touched. Its presence sent a shiver of foreboding through the city. Fishermen cursed the chill, bakers fretted over damp ovens, and atop Aegon's hill, flames leapt higher in every hearth. In the small hall, servants heaped cedar logs upon a fire that roared tall as a warhorse. Yet still Lord Eddard Stark felt winter creeping beneath his collar. He rolled his wounded shoulder to keep it warm and glanced at the board before him. A carved map of the 7 kingdoms strewn with painted cubes. Blue for the Vale, gray for the north, green for the Reach, red for the west, each marking a host on the march. Opposite sat Petyr Baelish, legs crossed, gloved fingers drumming softly on the arm of his chair. Between them a single candle guttered, its lank flame bending each time the shuttered windows rattled. Beyond those windows, Ned's men drilled in the outer bailey beside gold cloaks sporting new sable armbands. Mockingbird silhouettes stitched in silver thread. They looked more like Petyr's men every day, Ned thought grimly. How many spears ride behind Mace Tyrell truly? Ned asked. Petyr's eyes flickered, green glass catching firelight. 30,000, give or take 1,000 wagons. Yet they ride for Renly, not against us. The Reach fattens on words of chivalry. They will not cross swords with the rightful king while flowers still bloom in their fields. Ned tapped the Riverlands. And the Westerlands? Lord Tywin picks his moment. Littlefinger smiled thin as a rapier. He is too canny to storm walls manned by gold cloaks paid from my coffers. He waits for Stannis to show weakness, or for me to stumble. Ned's frown deepened. It galls me, relying on coin to stay the lion's claws. Better coin than corpses. Petyr rose, cloak whispering against the rushes. Stannis is 2 days out with his lead galleys. Once crowned, he will levy taxes anew and refill our purses. Until then, my bags must suffice. Ned studied him. And when Stannis arrives, will he thank the man who bribed half the city into his obedience? Or castigate a master of coin for daring to spend without leave? Petyr's smile brightened, all mock innocence. If he disapproves, I will present ledgers. Every dragon accounted for. He leaned closer. Numbers do not betray honor. They only measure it. Before Ned could reply, the doors banged open and Maester Porin shuffled in, cheeks flushed from the stare. Lord Protector, he wheezed. A rider from Storm's End, urgent. A skinny boy in mud-caked boots stepped forward, cloak crusted with sea salt. He knelt and produced a cylinder sealed in gray wax. Ned broke it, scanning the cramped lines. Stannis means to beach at Duskendale daybreak tomorrow, he said aloud. He requests fresh mounts, safe escort through the King's Road, and the head of the Kingslayer displayed atop the gate of the gods as token of our fidelity. Petyr's brows arched. So swiftly? Duskendale stands 4 hours' ride. We must prepare. Ned rose, pain twinging through his stitched thigh. Jaime's trial is set for the morrow's 3rd hour. Bring it forward, Petyr urged. A verdict before dawn buys goodwill with Stannis. A sentencing at sunrise buys more. You would execute him tonight? I would hang the Lannister banner upside down from every tower, if that's what the new king desires. Petyr turned to the boy. Tell your lord the city will receive him with open gates and closed coffers. The messenger darted off. Ned stared at the map. Jaime's death invites Tywin's wrath. Tywin's wrath is already invited, Petyr said softly. It merely awaits the invitation's calligraphy. Ned rubbed the bridge of his nose. Fetch Lord Varys and Pycelle. I will convene the judges. Petyr bowed and strode out. The door swung shut behind him, snuffing half the candle's light. Ned exhaled, the scent of cedar smoke thick in his lungs. Somewhere far below, the bells of the Great September told a low, mournful note. Once for Robert, twice for departed innocence. Down in the black belly of the keep, torchlight guttered along the damp stone corridor that led to the prisoners' cells. The clash of swords and murmur of jailers faded behind Petyr as he approached Jaime Lannister's door. 2 Vale guards barred the way. At a nod, they stepped aside. Inside, Jaime lounged against the rough wall, chains draped like silver serpents across his lap. Despite a purple bruise blossoming across his cheek, he wore a prince's smile. Little finger, Jaime drawled. I had begun to think you'd forgotten our little knitting circle. Petyr closed the door. The hour is late and the noose tight. Ah, doom speech. Jaime toyed with his manacles. Does Stark intend to lop my head off now or wait until Stannis arrives? Stannis wants your head on arrival. Petyr produced a ring of iron keys. But heads preserved too long rot and smell. Jaime's gold-green eyes narrowed. Are you offering mercy? A trade, Petyr said. A single name. Which? The one who pushed Jon Arryn from this mortal coil. Jaime laughed. And if I knew, why in the 7 hells would I tell you? Petyr knelt, keys jingling. Because confessing buys life. A black cell in the wall perhaps, rather than a spike. Perhaps even freedom, if fortune smiles. Jaime's lips twisted. Jon Arryn died of a fever, or so Maester Pycelle bleats. Petyr's gaze chilled. Fever brewed in tears of liss. Someone poured it into his ears. And you think it was me? Jaime snorted. I would have used a sword. I think, Petyr murmured. You know who? He unlocked one manacle, just enough to relieve weight. Jaime flexed his wrist. Why chase ghosts? You've a throne to polish. Thrones tarnish when truth rots beneath them. Petyr rose, replaced the keys. Sleep on it. Dawn comes swiftly. He left the night in shadow and mounted the stairs 2 at a time, heart thumping. Jaime's silence told him nothing and everything. The Kingslayer's arrogance masked fear, and fear could be milked like a she-goat. He would yield if given the right prod. Catelyn stood at the lantern-lit window of her chambers, watching snow swirl over the rooftops. Edlyn slept curled beside the hearth with a direwolf pup of gray felt and straw she carried everywhere. Rabar snored soft in his crib. Moments like this, children breathing, the hush between storms, were jewels she clasped tight. Yet her worry had fangs. Each rumor slashing the corridors found her ears. Tyrell hosts on the march, Renly raising a green stag crown, Tywin planting gold blades along the trident, the river lords restless. And now Stannis, stern and pitiless, who would brook no slight, no half measure. A knock rattled the door. Catelyn gathered her robe and opened it to find Lisa's raven perched upon the rail. Note tied. She eased it free.
Cut, flay.
Stannis means blood. You are no safer than I was. Trust him no more. No signature, but Lisa's broken script trembled in every stroke. Catelyn exhaled, folding the note. She smoothed it over candle flame. The parchment curled, blackened, turned to drifting ash. Lisa had lost herself to fear, seeing knives in every smile. Had Jon's death unmoored her? Or had Petyr's courtship decades past carved too deep? She blew out the flame and turned to the cradle, stroking Rabar's downy hair. "Your father gambles," she whispered. "But he gambles for us." Snowflakes hissed against hot glass. Catelyn pressed her brow to the pane, praying to the mother that the gamble held. An hour before dawn, bells clanged again, sharper now, summoning lords to judgment. Ned Stark, dressed in mourning black, descended to the Hall of Justice beneath the throne room. Rows of benches flanked a stone dais where 3 seats waited. One for the Protector, one for the Hand of Coin, one for the Master of Whisperers. Pycelle tottered in last, rope of Maester's chain clinking like wind chimes. Candles sputtered in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the floor. Ser Jaime was led in, chains rattling. He met Ned's gaze with defiance. Petyr sat at Ned's right, face unreadable save for the faint tilt of his head that bade Slint's men stand ready. Varys glided to the dais, robes whispering. Once all were seated, Ned gave a curt nod. "Ser Jaime Lannister, you are charged with treason against the crown, conspiracy with the former queen, and murder of men sworn to the realm. How do you plead?" Jaime smiled like dawn on metal. "As always, I plead guilty of being too handsome, my lord." Murmurs rippled. Ned's jaw clenched. "Spare levity. Confess and you may yet win the wall's mercy." "The wall?" Jaime barked a laugh. "And leave dear Casterly Rock to my father's generosity?" Petyr leaned forward. "Your father will see you beheaded if it spares his pride. Confess, and banishment spares your life." Jaime's eyes flicked to Petyr, wary. "You'd have me trade one cage for another." "The North holds no cages," Ned said. "Only ice." Jaime toyed with a chain link. "Very well. I confess one sin, love for my sister. The rest," he shrugged. "Paint what crimes you like. History will use thicker strokes." Gasps flared. Pycelle's quill scratched frantic notes. Varys raised a thin brow. Petyr watched Jaime with the calm of a man dissecting a snake. "Your incest births bastard children," Ned said, voice flat. "That alone damns you." "Damns us both," Jaime retorted. "You speak of bastards yet shelter one beneath your roof, do you not? Or has your lady wife forgiven your seed by some camp follower?" Ned's face went winter-hard. His guards tensed. Petyr raised a staying hand. "Insults do not sway verdicts," he said. "Then verdict," Jaime snapped, "and be done."
Ned stood.
"By edict of the Protector, I declare Ser Jaime Lannister guilty. Sentence: execution at sunrise." A hush fell like snow. Only the wind moaned beyond the walls, rattling shutters. Jaime's smile vanished. He swallowed but lifted his chin. Petyr rose next. "With the court's leave," he said gently, "I ask clemency. Ser Jaime's confession, incomplete as it is, spares the city further blood. The Kingslayer's death will ignite Tywin's wrath. Mercy may bargain for peace." Ned's eyes narrowed. "Your counsel contradicts my ruling. A suggestion, not contradiction." Petyr bowed. Pycelle cleared his throat. "Mercy is a virtue, Lord Stark, and justice is another."
Ned faced Petyr.
"Would you grant mercy to a viper? He murders children's fathers while crowing of chivalry. Yet snake venom may heal if distilled," Petyr murmured. Varys interjected, voice velvet. "Lord Protector, killing Ser Jaime gifts the Westerlands a martyr. Spare him and you hold a sword at his father's throat."
Ned hesitated.
Snow tapped the high windows. He had learned long ago that honor alone could not steer storms, but nor could compromise by a clear conscience. At last he spoke. "Sentence stands. Dawn." Jaime exhaled, a breath sharp as sword steel. Petyr's lashes lowered, briefly hiding stormy eyes. He bowed without argument. The hall emptied. Jaime was led away. Ned felt each footfall like a stone toppling into a dark well. Night's last hour clung to the castle like a dying man refusing final breath. Petyr moved through silent corridors lit by guttering torches, cloak trailing embers of shadow. Samwell Stone waited in the alcove by the maiden vault door, helm tucked beneath arm. "Orders, my lord?" "2 men," Petyr whispered. "Hall of Justice antechamber. Silence the guards, fetch the prisoner, bring him to the stables. A black cloak and a fresh mount await." Samwell's brows lifted. Defying the Protector? Honoring the realm? Petyr pressed a purse into his gauntlet. "No blood on Ned's hands. Go." When Samwell hurried off, Littlefinger exhaled. He touched the scar on his neck, the Queensguard's failed slice, and remembered the taste of fear. Conscience, ambition, necessity. 3 blades twisting in a single wound. If Jaime died, Tywin would turn the trident red. If Jaime escaped, Stannis would howl betrayals. But Stannis needed coin and ships more than he needed a head. Coin and ships Petyr controlled. Leverage weighed heavier than steel. He descended to the rookery once more, penned a brief note in cipher. "Lion set loose. Moon meets mountain. Gold flows." He sealed it with green wax unmarked, bound it to a raven, and sent it flapping into the pale sky that lightened with dawn. Snowflakes swirled around the bird, catching first blush of sunrise. Petyr watched until it vanished, a black mote against whitening clouds. Then he turned toward the stables. Catelyn woke to shouts echoing across the courtyard. Angry shouts. She tossed on a wool cloak and hurried to the window. Below, gold cloaks milled. Torches flaring though sun crept over rooftops. A bell clanged. Hoofs clattered. Somewhere a trumpet blared off-key. She snatched the first gown to hand and rushed into the corridor where Edlyn, pale, stood clutching her doll. "Mother, soldiers run," the girl whispered. "Stay with Nella." Catelyn kissed her brow and hurried onward, heart pounding. On the stairs she met Ned, sword belted, hair uncombed, face grim. "Jaime?" she asked. "Gone," Ned said. "Stables empty, guards gagged. My sentence undone." Her breath caught. "Who?" He did not answer, but his eyes flicked up the stair where Petyr Baelish emerged, cloak dusted with snow.
Littlefinger, ned grovled.
"You're doing." Petyr's voice was calm. Samwell Stone found 2 dead guards at dawn and no prisoner. The city searches. Catelyn saw truth in his eyes and something else. Guilt or relief. Snow melted on his lashes. "Edlyn's safe," he murmured, as if that salved all. Ned's jaw clenched. "Stannis will arrive within hours. How explain this betrayal? Explain necessity." Petyr descended, stepping past them. Jaime's head delayed would sour Tywin's mood. His escape sweetens our bargaining. Ned seized Petyr's arm. "You free him, realm bleeds." Petyr's gaze met Catelyn's over Ned's shoulder. "Pleading? No. Calculating. The realm bleeds either way," he said softly. "At least now Tywin's blade blunts on gratitude." Ned released him with a shove. "You gamble with lives." "As do we all," Petyr whispered and slipped away. Catelyn caught Ned's hand. "He means to spare us wrath." "He spares himself coin lost to war," Ned spat. He turned down the stairs, leaving her torn between 2 loyalties braided into one heart. By midday, Stannis' banners, fiery heart crowned by stag within a field of black, topped the gate of the gods. The new king entered beneath arching portcullis bars, plate gleaming dull red where rust had been hastily cleaned. He dismounted in the courtyard, snow crunching under boot.
Ned stark knelt.
"Your grace, the city is yours." Stannis studied him, eyes cold sapphire. "Is it? I hear the Kingslayer fled." "Escaped," Ned said, rising. "We hunt him still." Stannis' gaze swept the walls where mockingbird pennants fluttered beside direwolves. "I see the fingers of Baelish everywhere." Petyr stepped forward, cloak swirling. "Your grace, those fingers hold the realm's purse strings. Yours to command." Stannis' lips thinned. "I command heads." He turned to Ned. "The Protector's failure requires satisfaction. Give me Baelish." Gasps rose. Slint's hand found sword. Petyr merely inclined his head.
Ned spoke.
My fault, not his. I sentenced Jaime, posted guards. Responsibility is mine. Indeed. Stannis stepped closer. Yet you hold the throne room. Baelish holds the gold cloaks. Coin and steel both answer to him. A subject too powerful invites treason. Petyr's smile was slight. Power, like fire, warms or burns at your pleasure. Stannis regarded him. You would bend the knee? I bend profit to your reign. Petyr knelt, snow-soaking his hose. Command, and I obey. A hush. Wind hissed across the courtyard. Stannis's cloak flapped. At last he spoke. Very well. Serve. Prove loyalty. Bring me the Kingslayer within a fortnight, or bring me his father's surrender. Fail, and your head decorates these gates. Petyr bowed. It shall be so. Stannis turned to Ned. Lord Stark, you will continue as hand until I find a worthier. Rouse the lords. The realm requires justice. At once, your grace, Ned said. Stannis strode toward the keep. Snowflakes caught in his beard, melting on hard lines. Courtiers scurried after. Catelyn, watching from the steps, exhaled relief. Yet her heart fluttered at Petyr's bowed form. He rose, glanced back, eyes meeting hers. In them she read not fear but exhilaration. The thrill of a fresh game board. She hurried inside. Ned joined her, voice low. He lives on borrowed days. Will you aid him? She asked. I will watch him, Ned said. And pray no more serpents slip free. Catelyn touched his cheek. Serpents are sly, but we are Stark and Tully both. We endure. Ned kissed her brow. Pray that is enough. Far to the west, in the torchlit halls of Casterly Rock, Lord Tywin Lannister received news by Raven. Jaime escaped, Cersei sailed to Pentos, Stannis Baratheon crowned. His jaw tightened as he read the seal of a mockingbird on the parchment's second page. He passed it to Maester with icy calm. Send for Ser Kevin, he said, and summon the captains. We march at once. In the flickering fire, the lion's eyes gleamed like molten gold. Across the realm, banners stirred, alliances shifted, and winter's shadow lengthened upon fields not yet harvested. At the heart of it stood Petyr Baelish, cloak of snow-kissed silk flaring as he stepped beneath a portico of the Red Keep, gazing down upon a city he had gambled into fragile peace. His breath steamed, and in that mist he saw the shapes of crowns, of coffers, of daggers yet unsheathed. A mockingbird sings sweetest and cold, he murmured, recalling words once spoken upon Riverrun's battlements. Snowflakes melted on his tongue, leaving only the taste of iron and possibility. And high above, ravens wheeled against a bruised sky, bearing tidings to every corner of a realm that no longer belonged to lions nor stags nor wolves, only to the swift, the subtle, and the unafraid. The first snowstorm of the new reign settled over King's Landing like a silken shroud, muffling the clatter of hooves and the growl of tavern doors. The Blackwater narrowed beneath sheets of white mist, and every turret wore a frozen crown. In the Tower of the Hand, Lord Eddard Stark rose before dawn each day to pore over letters from every corner of the realm. Messages carried by ravens whose wings were crusted with ice by the time they landed. Most bore grim tidings. Lord Mace Tyrell had halted his 30,000 spears along the Mander while his bannermen debated whether the stag-crowned heart was truer than the golden rose. Renly Baratheon's green banners blossomed along the Rose Road in open defiance of his elder brother, and Highgarden's mead-sweet promises tugged more petals loose each morning. In the Riverlands, Edmure Tully pleaded for grain to feed towns already stripped bare by the Lannister outriders who prowled the Trident's banks like hungry cats. And at the Neck, howling storms swallowed ravens whole. Only a single tattered parchment reached the capital, warning that the marshes stood half-flooded and the causeway towers lacked salt beef. Every missive ended the same way. We ask the king for coin and support. The king had coin enough, if one believed the neatly balanced ledgers Petyr Baelish placed on the council table each fortnight. But Ned had learned to see where ink had been scrubbed and redrawn. As the snow deepened, so did his unease. Yet within the Red Keep, life pulsed on. Queen Shireen, dark-eyed and shy in a court that still expected Cersei's lioness roar, appeared daily at the sept to pray for warmth for the city's children. Maester Porin supervised infirmary beds stuffed with orphan boys who suffered frostbitten fingers after a night on stone doorsteps. And in the low halls beneath the keep, blades were sharpened and armor hammered long past midnight under the orders of the new master-at-arms, Ser Godry Faring, a taciturn giant who gave no quarter and expected none. 1 week after Stannis' entry, the king convened his first great audience. Every lord in the city, high or humble, was commanded to attend. Ned took his place beside the dais while Petyr lingered half a step behind, eyes flicking across the crowd the way a gambler sizes a table. The doors at the far end boomed open. Stannis Baratheon strode the long carpet alone, crown of iron stags upon his brow, sword Lightbringer belted at his hip. The hall fell silent but for the crackle of torches. When he mounted the dais, his glare raked those gathered, as though he could see the price of each man's allegiance etched on their brows. "Lords and ladies," Stannis said, voice carrying like a clarion through the hushed chamber, "the realm's wounds are deep. We shall close them with steel and justice." He paused, letting the promise sink. "The Kingslayer has fled his chains. I command every bannerman present to muster riders. Whosoever brings Jaime Lannister alive or delivers proof of his death shall be granted a boon of lands to equal a lordship and a seat upon the king's own table." Whispers hissed across the benches. Several low lords eyed one another. Others glanced at Petyr Baelish, gauging how much gold his coffers could spare to beat them to the prize. Ned read it all and felt a chill deeper than the snow outside. Stannis raised a hand and 3 guards dragged forward Ser Pycelle. The maester's robe was torn, chain of offices clinking in disarray. "This man," Stannis declared, "counseled Queen Cersei to feed my predecessor slow poison and concealed her bastards at court. For these crimes against the realm, he is stripped of chain and office. Tomorrow he will sail to the wall and take the black." He turned to Ned. "See it done." Pycelle's watery eyes filled with tears, but the hall cheered. Ned did not. A maester was a link between king and people. To cast him aside so swiftly might splinter trust where the realm most needed counsel. But Stannis had chosen, and a king's choice echoed like thunder. When the hall finally emptied, Ned found Petyr sipping mulled wine near a frost-rimmed window. "You're doing?" Ned asked, head tilted toward the dais where Pycelle had knelt. Petyr's smile showed only in his eyes. "Spiders weave silk, my lord. Mockingbirds only sing what's already whispered. If Pycelle kept secrets, best he share them with ravens at Castle Black rather than lions in Casterly Rock." "Jaime still roams free," Ned reminded him. "The longer he roams, the farther Tywin must ride to find him." Littlefinger turned, snowflakes glimmering in the curls of his cloak. "Distance weakens claws. Every mile between lion and cub lengthens the price of peace." Ned folded arms. "You gamble again, and you mistake strategy for dice." Petyr bowed, then slipped away. That night, Ned stood upon the outer wall, watching flurries whip across the darkened city. 2 ravens fluttered from the rookery, one bound for Winterfell, carrying letters to Robb and Benjen. The other winging east to the Vale, calling upon Catelyn's uncle Brynden to bring 1,000 knights to stand beside Edmure's levies. Ned could not see the birds, but he traced their flight across the black sky by the faint beats of wings he fancied echoed above the groan of freezing timbers. He wondered if ravens ever read of bearing tidings no man wished to read. Below, the mud gate torches glinted on the water as a flotilla of narrowboats churned upriver bearing sacks of barley from distant Gulltown docks. Coin Baelish's agents had loaned at thrice its worth in grain. Ned clenched gloved fists. Hunger would bloom before winter's end. He knew, and Petyr seemed the only man counting mallows and oats. An honorable man must keep the people fed, even if the grain arrived by tainted coin. A footfall behind him, Catelyn drew her cloak tight, copper hair tangled by the wind. "Your ravens fly through storms," she said softly. "Let us hope they land." He drew her close. "I wish you and the children were safe in Winterfell, And leave you alone with southern wolves? She shook her head. The pack survives together. He kissed her brow, then walked the walls until dawn tinted the horizon the color of forge-cooled steel. On the 9th day of Stannis' reign, thunder rolled from the west. Scouts came racing with reports. Tywin Lannister's host, 40,000 strong, crossed the Red Fork and burned Fairmarket. The River Lords scattered, outnumbered. Lanerly and Piper fields smoldered under falling snow, and the smoke of winter wheat poured black against the gray sky. Ned pored over the map until his vision blurred. "We need Riverrun held," he told Petyr, "or the lion reaches our doorstep." Petyr tapped a varnished cube on the board, green for the reach. "We cannot outmarch Tywin, but we can outbid him. Mace Tyrell wants Renly crowned, yet Renly craves gold. Reach coin could buy patience." Ned shook his head. "The realm bleeds while men haggle. Bleeding men take coin for bandages." Petyr's tone was mild. "Let me treat with Renly. You would defect to his cause?"
Ned demanded.
"Never. I will show him the price of rebellion." Petyr's smile curved. "And extract his promise not to march until summer. With Tyrell grain in our stores, King's Landing survives until Tywin is forced to retreat."
Ned rubbed temples.
"Do it, but no schemes." Petyr bowed. "Honesty, my lord, is just the most convincing disguise." And with that he left, summoning horses for the Rose Road. 2 nights later, Queensbreakers from the Stepstones surrendered in the bay, buying pardons with news. A Braavosi galley had put Cersei ashore in Pentos, where the Magister Illyrio feasted her court. Rumor said Myrcella was to be betrothed to the Prince of Pentos, while Tommen lingered bedridden from a chill caught at sea. How much reached Tywin's ears Ned could only guess. The lion might strike before harvest scorched or snow froze the fields. Stannis camped outside the city walls each night, studying stars, perhaps seeking prophecy in their flicker. He granted Ned leave to fortify Old Town's approaches but refused to spare a single ship from the Blackwater's mouth. "If Tyrell chooses treason," he said, "the Reach must be starved of salt and silver." One dawn, Catelyn found Ned asleep at his desk. Ink spilled across a parchment that began to "My son Rob." She folded the letter unread and roused him with soft words. They shared bread and fish in silence, weight of duty pressing heavier than any armor. Rabar gurgled in his cradle, and Ned smiled for the first time in days. Just after midday, a horn sounded from the King's Road gate, 3 blasts, the signal for royal returning. Petyr Baelish rode in flanked by 6 guards in half-helms of painted falcon. His cloak was spattered with mud, yet he swung down nimble as a cat before the steps of the Tower of the Hand. In his gauntlet he carried a small coffer carved with vines. Ned met him in the council chamber. "What news?" "A promise bound in gold." Petyr set the coffer on the table and lifted the lid. Inside lay a single ring, the rose of House Tyrell wrought in emeralds, petals clasped around a white pearl. Renly accepts Stannis' rule in exchange for betrothal between King Stannis' daughter and Garland Tyrell's eldest son. Mace swears grain and spear if Stannis rescinds taxes on Reach silk and grants Highgarden the wardenship of the South. Ned stared at the glittering ring. Stannis will never cede Warden's mantle. He will if he wishes to keep his crown. Petyr closed the coffer. And with that, Tyrell wheat flows to our docks. How many coins traded hands? Fewer than the lives saved from famine.
Ned sighed.
You walk a blade's edge. If I fall, be sure to step aside, Petyr said, and for an instant his face looked weary. Even a mockingbird tires of the wind. Snow plagued the city in waves that winter, each flurry heavier than the last, until rooftops bowed under white blankets and chimneys coughed black soot into gray skies. Fires devoured what little wood the city stored. Petyr's grain wagons queued at the Lion Gate, their drivers chanting prayers to the Mother for safe passage through frost-slick streets. Ned inspected the convoys in person, cloak whipped by icy gusts. At every warehouse he saw small folk lined outside, hands cupped, begging for bread. The Northman in him wanted to dole out sacks freely, but the hand in him knew supplies must hold until spring. One bitter morning, 3 gold cloaks escorted a hooded woman through the tower door. Ned recognized her step before her face. Arya, small sword on hip, cheeks red from cold. "Father," she said, pushing back the hood to reveal tangled brown hair and eyes as sharp as the needle she named her blade. "I found him." "Found whom?" Ned asked, though dread already stirred. "The Kingslayer. I saw him with a Sellsword band in the rag market. He wore a patched cloak, but I knew his face." She straightened proudly. "I followed them to a warehouse by the river gate." Ned's breath caught. "Arya, you risked your life. I had needle." She brushed snow off her hair. "And I remember your lesson. Know your enemy before you strike." At that moment Petyr entered, bearing a sheaf of parchment. One glance at Arya's shining eyes and Ned's taut shoulders said all. "Arya," Petyr greeted, voice gentle. "You bring tidings?" She repeated her report with rapid fire. Petyr's eyes narrowed as he listened. When she finished, he knelt, resting one hand on her shoulder. "You are brave, yet a lion cornered is deadliest. Will you guide us?" Arya's grin flashed. "If you promise he'll answer for his crimes." "Those are the king's orders," Petyr said. She looked to her father. Ned gave a single nod. Within the hour, 50 gold cloaks marched behind Arya through twisting lanes, past shuttered shops and over bridges where river ice floated like shattered mirrors. Ned rode behind her, eyes scanning rooftops for archers. Petyr kept pace at his side, cloak streaming. The rag market stank of brine and soot. Arya led them to a low stone warehouse with boarded windows. 2 guards lounged outside, pikes across their knees. They stood when they saw the company and would have run, but arrows felled them. Slint's men breached the door. Inside lay a dozen Sellswords, riders of the Golden Company by their striped sashes. In the loft above, a man slept on a pallet, blonde hair cut short but unmistakable. Jaime Lannister sprang to his feet, sword snatched up, eyes blazing. Steel clanged as gold cloaks rushed the stairs. Jaime fought like wildfire, parrying blades, maneuvering to push one brigand into another's path. Ned climbed after, ice heavy in his fist. Snow flurried through gaps in the roof, settling on the boards. "Kingslayer."
Ned skjuted.
Jaime spun, eyes widening, mouth twisting into that infamous grin. "Winter Wolf," he panted. "Come to finish me?" "Yield," Ned said. Jaime laughed, ducked a spear thrust, slashed up, steel across steel. Gold cloaks fanned out. Petyr below called, "Alive, remember." Jaime's boot slipped on snow-slick planks. Ned struck his blade, sending it skittering. Jaime lunged barehanded, but a spear haft cracked across his knees. He crumpled. 2 cloaks seized his arms while another looped chain about his throat. Blood misted Ned's cloak. His heart hammered. Jaime spat. "Twice you cage me," he snarled. "But lions chew through iron. Then I'll bind you in honor," Ned replied. They marched Jaime back through the streets as small folk jeered and pelted him with frozen lumps of raked-up snow and straw. Arya walked beside her father, shoulders square. When Jaime glared, she met his gaze without flinching. At the keep, Stannis descended the steps of Maegor's holdfast to meet them. Snow cascaded off his pauldrons. Jaime, forced to kneel, raised blood-flecked eyes. "You escaped justice once," Stannis said. "You shall not do so again. At dawn you will climb the steps of the Great September and confess before the gods and the realm." Jaime spat red at the snow. "I'll confess that wolves whimper when lions roar." Stannis nodded to guards. "Take him." As they dragged the Kingslayer away, Petyr whispered to Ned, "Tywin's claws will reach swiftly now." "Let them," Ned answered, hand resting on Arya's shoulder. "Snow melts beneath fire, but snow returns." Petyr's eyes darkened, gauging the cost of what came next. Dawn broke pale and cold. Bells tolled like cracked bones. A throng packed the square before the Great September of Baelor. Snow drifted from the sky, covering stones in a ghostly veil. Ned stood upon the dais with Stannis and the small council. Varys in ermine-trimmed cloak, Grand Maester Samwell, appointed in Pycelle's stead, clutching new chains of yellowed brass, and Petyr Baelish, face cast half in shadow beneath his hood. Slint's gold cloaks ringed the steps, spears upright. Jaime Lannister, hands bound in iron, was led forth. His hair hung limp over a bruised brow, mouth swollen where a guard's pommel split his lip. Yet he walked with head high, as though each gawking citizen were a courtier at Casterly Rock. Maester Samwell held a rolled parchment. "Confess your crimes," he intoned, "and beg the Seven for mercy." Jaime's grin dripped contempt. "I confess your king is a pretender set upon a chair of lies." He spat blood upon the snow. Gasps rippled. Stannis's face hardened. "So be it." He turned to Ned. "Execute the sentence." Ned stepped forward, ice raised. Snowflakes hissed upon the Valyrian steel. He met Jaime's stare. "Any last words?" "Tell my sister," Jaime said. "I fought to the last breath." Ned's sword poised. The square held its breath. A horn blast cut the air, long, deep, ominous. Another answered from the city walls. Heads turned. A rider galloped into the square, cloak of crimson and gold streaming. He reigned before the dais, breath rising in clouds. "Host of Lord Tywin Lannister, less than a day's march," he cried. 50,000 spears, camps on the banks of the Blackwater. He demands his son's life in exchange for peace. Murmurs erupted. Jaime's smile widened through blood. "Told you, Wolf." Stannis's eyes burned. "The Blackwater runs red before I yield to threats." Petyr stepped beside Ned. "Your Grace, if Tywin assaults the city now, famine and fire take us all. Grant him parley." No, Stannis's lips thinned. "He will break like the rest. The walls may, before he does." Petyr's voice was low but urgent. "Let Ned ride to treat. We need days for river defenses. Time for Tyrell grain to arrive." Stannis's glare cut between Petyr and Ned. Snow swirled like cold ashes. At last the king spoke. "Very well. Eddard Stark will parley. The Kingslayer's execution is stayed until the moon's turn. If Tywin retreats 10 leagues, we speak. If not, we burn his siege engines on the river's banks and hang his son from the Sept's spire." Jaime laughed. "A fair game," he said. Ned lowered ice. Snow melted on the blade, steaming in the morning light. The parley took place on a desolate embankment west of the city, where charred stakes from Robert's rebellion still jutted from the frozen mud. Ned rode out with 20 guards, cloak of direwolf gray billowing. Petyr rode at his side, no armor, only a coat of black velvet clasped by the mockingbird pin. They reached the Lannister camp at dusk to find crimson tents rode like bloody teeth and torchlight dancing upon the polished plates of thousands of silent men. Lord Tywin awaited beneath a silk canopy embroidered with roaring lions. His eyes were pale green chips of glass, unflinching in his chiseled face. He did not rise when Ned dismounted. "Lord Stark," he greeted, voice cool. "My lord." Ned inclined his head. "Your son stands trial, yet still breathes," Tywin noted. "A kindness I did not expect. I did not extend it," Stannis's envoy replied. Ned kept his tone calm. "The king offers peace for your withdrawal." Tywin's brow lifted. "Peace? I know the taste of forced peace. Your king sits uneasy. The Reach and Dorne fret. Storms brew in Dragonstone. Why should I bend? Because each hour your host camps here," Petyr interrupted smoothly, "another 100 small folk perish from hunger. Grain lies in the Reach uncut. Summer rains will rot it before your spears ride home. A realm of ash yields no taxes." Tywin's gaze slid to Petyr. "I recall you once begged silver for your fingers' lands, and turned them to gold," Petyr replied. "Invest in peace, my lord, instead of war without profit." Tywin tapped the arm of his chair, expression unreadable. "Return my son, and I withdraw beyond the Trident. Stannis removes every levy against my ports and confirms the Westerland's right to mint gold coin. In exchange, I recognize his crown." Ned considered. "Withdraw and hostages go to Riverrun until summer." Jaime remains in the city until your banners cross the tumblestone. He met Tywin's eyes. And you swear not to harbor the queen's bastards. Tywin's lips tightened. Such oaths bind the foolish and the dead. They bind the living to honor, Ned said. A tense silence stretched until Petyr spoke again. The realm remembers Casterly Rock's debts repaid. Choose coin, my lord. Snow gusted, whirling into the canopy. Tywin rose at last. I will consider, he said. You have 3 days. If I do not see Lannister scarlet upon the walls as token of good faith by sunset on the 3rd, we march, and the city's women will wail for 100 years.
Ned bowed stiffly.
Petyr inclined his head. They rode back under winter stars, hooves crunching ice. Behind them, the Lannister camp flickered like a red sea of coals awaiting the wind. Back within the walls, Stannis listened to Ned's report in grim silence. When Ned finished, the king paced before the hearth where flames snapped. Tywin wants gold, Stannis sneered. He will dig even in snow for it. Gold or blood, Ned said. One spares the realm. Stannis clenched his fists. I won this throne by right of blood, not by bribes. Rights crack under siege, Petyr murmured from the shadows. Stannis turned sharply. Your tongue spends coin faster than your purse, Baelish. And yet the realm still eats, Petyr answered, eyes flat. Stannis scowled, then spun to Ned. Very well. If Tywin hangs banners of peace, we talk. If not, we fight. He removed his crown, staring at the iron stags. The realm's fate balances on the spine of a single lion. He placed the crown upon the mantle and left the room. Ned breathed out slow. Pray Tywin values his son. Petyr poured dark arbor wine, handed the cup to Ned. He values legacy above all. He swallowed his own draft and set the goblet down. Yet legacies shift. His eyes shone. We may carve a new one still. Ned eyed him warily. What scheme coils next? No scheme, only a question. Petyr's voice softened. When this war ends, what price will we pay for peace? Yours is honor. Mine may be measured in the happiness of 1 woman and 2 children. He looked toward the window, where Catelyn's chamber lantern flickered against the falling snow. Do not make me choose between the realm and them. Ned's features softened, but before he could reply, a messenger burst in. Scouts sighted Tyrell banners massing on the Rose Road's ridge, 50,000 reachmen. The price of peace had risen again. Petyr closed his eyes and exhaled a white plume. The next 3 days blurred into a whirlwind of musters, messengers, and snow-choked council sessions. Within Maegor's holdfast, Catelyn moved like a quiet flame, comforting Edlin, guiding Arya in needlework 1 hour and sword drills the next. Rabar cut his first tooth and shrieked whenever the bells tolled. Omen, some whispered. On the eve of Tywin's deadline, it happened. A single crimson banner unfurled atop the Lion Gate, its edges encrusted with rime. Beneath, 24 golden lions rode through the snow holding high white branches of weirwood, sign of truce drawn from northern custom to honor Stark terms. News raced to the great hall where Stannis convened his council. Tywin retreats beyond the Tumblestone, a scout confirmed. Leaving 10 hostages at Riverrun, a sigh escaped many lips. Stannis only nodded. The first war ends. The next waits. Petyr's shoulders eased beneath his cloak. Ned allowed himself a weary smile. That night, the city breathed easier. Fires crackled. Bakers operated through dusk to feed celebration crowds with soft bread shaped like lions kneeling to stags. Children gathered snow to fashion crude knights and direwolves in the alleys. And in the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark wrote to Robb, "Peace may yet hold, my son. Guard Winterfell, and pray the snows pass swiftly." He sealed the letter and shook sand upon wax. Catelyn entered and read fatigue in his eyes. She pressed a kiss to his temple and led him to the bed, where the world's weight lifted for a time. Across the corridor, Petyr Baelish stood at his window, watching snow settle on silent battlements. In his hand he held the Tyrell ring, emerald petals glinting. He turned it between fingers, thinking of debts, alliances, and a copper-haired girl in Riverrun long ago who smiled at a boy in borrowed blue. He slipped the ring into a small coffer alongside a stack of freshly minted golden stags. Coins stamped with Stannis's grim visage, struck that morning in the royal mint he himself had reopened. A mockingbird's song, he mused, could coax even stags to dance. He closed the coffer and latched it, then blew out the candle. The chamber fell dark save for the dim glow of snow-silver moonlight across the panes. Petyr lay upon the bed, eyes tracing shadows that curled like questions across the ceiling. Tomorrow the Tyrells would arrive, bringing grain and banners and ambitions of their own. Tomorrow the North must answer for every sack of oats spent and every man lost on frozen roads. Tomorrow the lion licked wounded pride in its western den, plotting. But tonight, the realm sat balanced on the edge of winter stillness, and in that hush Petyr heard once more the murmured vow he swore upon the gods would root. A mockingbird sings sweetest in cold. He let the words drift with the snow outside, a promise to himself that no storm, not Tywin's, not Stannis's, not the inexorable march of winter, would still his song. So he slept, dreaming of silent halls ringing with gold, of dire wolves guarding valleys of new-sown grain, and of copper hair spread across linen like autumn leaves on fresh-turned soil. Dreams woven of silk and steel, of honor and ambition, of peace bought dearly but held close. Dreams of a realm reborn beneath snow-bright stars, where mockingbirds might yet nest in winter branches and sing of victories won without swords. Whether dawn would grant those dreams wing, no man could say. But in the heart of the Red Keep, as snow fell thicker by the hour, the game paused, pieces poised, breath held, while the first note of the NEXT song trembled, waiting for the world to decide whether to hush it or let it soar.